Circuit Zolder, a track providing challenge aplenty to even the more experienced drivers, and today we'll be testing this field of Dallara IRO5s for round number 5 of the classic Indycar series. Hello and welcome one and all to RaceSpot TV on the iRacing Esports Network for yet another presentation of classic Indycar racing. Not since 2015 has this Belgian track been on the schedule, and Mark Usher won it, and that means it is sure to provide one interesting race coming up for us today. I'm Miller Rempel. Joining me in the booth today, as always, is Rob Howden with the one and only Will Vincent behind the cameras for today. Now then, Rob, Zolder is far from the fastest track on the schedule. It's got plenty of low and mid-speed corners, chicanes aplenty, and with not a lot of runoff area at some points, this could be one of those tracks where precision is key, and every mistake will be costly.
Yeah, I think, Noel, it's going to be a lot different than the last event that we saw. Of course, we were at Brands Hatch running the Indy circuit, and that track, kind of a short track road course where there was a lot of opportunity to pass, but a lot of peril for drivers to make minor mistakes as well. This track with its layout, a lot of long straightaways, a lot of chicanes, as you said, a couple of quicker, more flowing corners, but primarily she's point and shoot. You got to get through the chicanes well. I think qualifying is going to be really important today.
Qualifying is, of course, already complete, and it was an important one for sure. That'll definitely decide a lot of positions for this race. Going through a couple of the driver standings going into today, Joshua Chin still manages to maintain his race lead despite having a less than optimal end to his race at Brands Hatch. Currently sitting with 176 points in the lead. 23 points behind is, of course, Lucas Laville. 36 behind Laville is Andrew Wood. Those are the three drivers right now in the top spot. Jamie Wilson, though, is looking to threaten Andrew Wood for that final podium position for the championship, with Robert Groscher rounding out the top 5. It has been definitely a really interesting season in terms of this championship. It's been so tight over the course of these races. Your top 4, though, have remained completely unchanged throughout the course of, throughout the course of the race since the last race we did at Brands Hatch.
Well, interesting, coming out of the gate at Fontana, the opening race of the year, Joshua Chin for Team Chimera able to get that victory. We've only had 2 winners, actually, in the 4 races, both Josh Chin and Lucas Laville with a couple of wins. Laville winning both the road course races, Chin winning both of the ovals. Also, Team Chimera and Vortex Sim Racing kind of dominate the action up front. As you said, Chin in first, Wood in third, Jamie Wilson in 4th, and Liam Quinn in 6th, all Team Chimera. Then you got the Vortex drivers in 2nd and 5th with Lucas Laville and Robert Grosser. You got to go back down to Iconic Motorsports' Josh Baird, who sits in the 7th place right now. Randy Shoemaker in the Aero X team in 8th spot. Otherwise, Team Chimera and Vortex Sim Racing have looked very, very good to get things underway.
It really is looking like Lucas Laville is definitely the more dominant of the 2 drivers on the road courses, and this is right in his ballpark. Cirque Zolder, and of course, we're going into Detroit Belle Isle for round number 6 on June 14th. So Laville does have a couple of races here where he can close in that lead and probably overtake Joshua Chin if Chin continues to have these bad races. Joshua Chin, though, the big question will be, can he fight back in round 7 at New Hampshire Motor Speedway? That's our first oval race, and then got 2 oval races back to back with New Hampshire and Kentucky. So these are going to be 2 races that are right in Joshua Chin's ballpark. The championship really is kind of swinging back and forth. We've seen that gap closing. It's now going to be a question of, can Joshua Chin get a good race here today so we can maintain that race lead going into Detroit when we head back to America?
And let's make sure we say that we're not saying that Joshua Chin can't get the job done on the road courses. He's obviously extremely quick there as well. He always is in somewhere in the top 2, top 3, top 4. Just had a bit of an issue in one of the corners at Sebring. Obviously had the issue as well, as we talked about at Brands Hatch. This would be a good opportunity for him to come out here, put a really good race in, kind of reset the bar in terms of what he's focused on for road course racing, knowing, as you said, after we get through Detroit and the street circuit there at Belle Isle, he's going to have 2 oval races to kind of get back to what is really his specialty. Again, though, no slouch at all when it comes to road course racing.
Right on board with a couple of cars. That was Josh Baird that we were just on board with, and you saw some of the very steep elevation changes a part of this track. That corner that I had gone over, I've seen cars getting unsettled there because you go right over the lip of a hill, and that car gets really, really light as we continue to take a ride on board with him. Even turn 1 is a bit interesting here. You know, it kind of arcs in a little bit and then really turns in sharp a little later. It's very easy to misjudge your entry point. You really have to get a longer apex in there further into the corner. This track is, it can be very fast at some points in this first section of the sector. One of the key chicanes, though, is going to be this one coming up here, because down this straightaway, this is the fastest you're going around the entire track, and it is so easy to hop across that chicane and get yourself a 1-second slowdown penalty. Going to be absolutely crucial for a lot of drivers, especially since these chicanes are just so one line. It's just almost impossible to try to make a pass cleanly going side by side through one of these chicanes.
Well, it's going to come down to car placement, right, Nolan? You got to make sure, like you said, you don't want to get that penalty. You have to hit your entry mark coming to the entry of any of these chicanes. As you said, the run between turn 4 down to turn 5, the only time these drivers are grabbing 6th gear. They are down into 1st gear when they head to turn number 8 as well, that very tight right-hander. But these chicanes are going to be very important. And one thing we'll definitely watch for is those drivers who potentially miss that entry and get behind a bit on the chicane. We could see, because the chicanes and some of the sausage curbing a little bit higher, we could see some front wing damage on these cars. And if a driver does get front wing damage, that's either going to hurt their pace overall or necessitate potentially a run to pit lane early to make a change on that wing.
Expect a new race record for the CIS to be set here as well, because the qualifying record from 2015 was blown out of the water by about 0.8 of a second. So we are expected to see some very fast lap times that will definitely be trumping the one, I think it was the 1:16 track record set back in the 2015 race, the last time these drivers ran here. Of course, we are going to be moving things on over to your qualifying run order now, as warm-up has concluded and we get set to go racing for an hour and 45 minutes. Standing starts, so we're going to make this starting rundown a quick one. Starting on pole position is going to be Robert Grosser. Joshua Chin kicking it off in second place. So once again, no slouch for Chin on the road courses. Jamie Wilson and Lucas Laville line up in row at number 2. And it is going to be Jos Vandeven rounding out the top 5. Ethan Hagen in 6th place. Christian Richter and Matt Molnar in 7th and 8th. Josh Baird, Franz Josef Stum rounding out the top 10. Karsten Broadway in 11th. Stefan Rosman in 12th. Luka Lektrovic in 13th. Johnny Garrett in 14th. Art McEwen rounding out the top 15 with Andrew Aiken in 16th place. Caleb Weekly 17th. Niall McBride 18th. Andrew Saunders and Jan Hoffman round out this the top 24 today. It's going to be Randy Shoemake, Logan Simmons, with Tristan House and Andrew Wood rounding out the 24-car field for today. Well, Rob, we're about to get go racing here. Standing starts for today's race, meaning it is going to be a very hectic run down to that first corner. Final thoughts before we get lights out here.
Well, again, this track is all going to be about car placement. As you said, we've already seen what happened in qualifying. Those drivers up front, like Robert Grosser, are going to have a great opportunity to kind of hold that position. Pit stops are going to be key, and we're underway. Drivers racing their way down to turn number 1.
And already 3 abreast for second place down there, and that's going to be Jamie Wilson trying to find the inside, gets all sorts of out of shape and keeps that car together, all clean and green, down through turn number 1, now through turn 2, still going to be looking to be clean, and now the top 2 breaking away. Jamie Wilson side by side with Joshua Chin for 3rd place. Chin holding that inside line, but Chin already down a spot for the start of this race, crashed behind them in the back. Quite a few drivers had to start for the pit lane, and Franz Josef Stum, Jan Hoffman both having spins.
Yeah, a number of drivers, 2 of them getting in trouble coming out of the opening couple of corners here. Otherwise, drivers rocking their way through the chicane here, working their way down again over to turn number 6. Good start, as we said, though, for Robert Grosser. Took full advantage of that pole position run. He'll work his way now through turn number 7, and they'll come back through a kind of a sweeping corner down to the turn number 8. First time they'll get all the way down into the gearbox to 1st gear. Coming through this turn number 8 section, light little chicane coming through turn number 9. Again, you watch the drivers up and over the curbing, the red and white curb on both the entry and the exit. First run down here into turn number 10. This will be a passing opportunity, Nolan, later in the race. There's not a lot of them here, as you said, but to get this first lap in the books, you wanted to get that opening run through 1, 2, and 3 clean. A couple drivers further back with contact, otherwise everybody else coming through. And back through turn number 1, Robert Grosser is your leader.
There were 5 cars that had to start from the pit lane, and 2 of them have already crashed. Logan Simmons made contact with Johnny Garrett down into the turn 6 chicane, And I'll tell you what, it was definitely not good for them because that sent Johnny Garrett around into the sand trap and did not get into the barriers, thank goodness. So that car is going to be more or less okay, but definitely not the start that these cars wanted to have after having to start from the pit lane today. Not what they wanted to see at all. Niall McBride is down to the lane again.
Replay of the incident on track here with Johnny Garrett, that number 23 machine coming through the chicane. Got contacted from behind, someone getting to the back of Johnny Garrett. We talked about how tough it's going to be to pass here, and one driver getting into the inside limit, Garrett trying to come across from drivers right to left, and the contact was made. Here's another shot of it here. Garrett thinking he's clear, coming back across. Contact, though, as you had said, with the number 75 machine of Logan Simmons. So those two drivers getting involved here early.
Yes, indeed. So already some carnage early on, but for now things are looking clean and green. Going to take a look back up to the battle for second place. Joshua Chin trying to run down Lucas LaVille. These two are locked in a, really they're locking horns in a championship fight. Lucas LaVille has a huge mistake. That's not what you usually see from LaVille, as he gets a huge bite of an oversteer, overcorrects it and nearly lost the car, but he's gotten itself secure. All of a sudden, he's under threat from Jamie Wilson, who's trying the outside. Replay up on your screen. Watch this, that car just steps in front of him in great car control to keep that car going. But Jamie Wilson completes the pass around the outside for third. LaVille now under threat from Jos Vandeven as well, down into the chicane. Nobody's going to make a look, though, to get the position done.
Wow, wonder what happened there with Lucas LaVille. That's just not something you can see. You see he got into the corner, car started to rotate on him a little bit. He was able to get some wheel into it and counter out of it, but man, after that, of course, he just goes on the full defensive. This is Jamie Wilson's pass around the outside, the Team Chimera, number 87. He's going to keep rolling that speed to the outside all the way through turn number 4, side by side, and give it up for LaVille as well. He probably could have forced the issue there a little bit, drove wide on the exit. Again, as you said, then another battle from further back on him as well, as Matt Molnar and Josh Vanderven was trying to get by. So a lot of action early, and as you said, Nolan, not something that we've seen out of Lucas LaVille. He's won both of the road course races here in this particular season, and an early mistake could cost him, although we still have a long way to go.
An hour and 41 minutes still remaining in this race, so plenty of time to make something work. About 83 laps was the predicted lap distance for today. We'll have to wait and see if that is going to be the case. So already quite a few dramas early on. We would like to remind that there is live timing available at racespot.tv/CIS. That is going to be your live timing for today's broadcast. So follow along with your favorite drivers there if we don't happen to have them on the screen at the moment. LaVille still trying to hunt down Jamie Wilson up in front of him, who made that brave pass around the outside for Team Chimera. So Wilson slowly on the prowl. He's looking to get himself a podium finish here today. Of course, Wilson is one of those drivers that has not gotten quite close enough to make a win for today, but I honestly think Robert Groscher might be in good contention for a victory today as he is pulling away. Battle on for 11th. Jen Hoffman having to go on the defensive from 12th place behind.
Yeah, Jan Hoffman in the 05's got a battle from behind. That is Luka Lejovic trying to find his way by. Good scrap. Hoffman holding on to that position. Is that Lejovic by? He potentially, I think, did get by. One thing to bring up is we have not touched on this yet. Yeah, we're talking about a lot of early racing here now, but we got a long way to go because there's a couple of different focuses. What are these guys going to do out front? Are we going to have a 2-stopper or are we going to have a 3-stopper? You mentioned 83 laps, potentially 83 or 84. Here's Ethan Agan actually going at it as well with the number 64 of Christian Richter. That's the battle for 7th position. And again, a lot of early aggressive racing here, knowing that we're only in the first run. I would expect to see a couple of drivers, potentially even Robert Grosser, try to go just the 3 stints of 28 laps, just a 2-stopper like he tried back in 2015. He'll need to save a bit of fuel. Got some open lap right now, but I think most of the drivers will probably go with a 3-stopper. That'll give you 4 stints of around 21 laps.
Josh Baer was having a couple of looks around Christian Richter as well. Did not quite manage to make the move done. Let's go back up to Robert Grosser, who is still continuing to pull away with his race lead here. Joshua Chin down in second place. 1.5 seconds is the gap. And right now, Chin is looking to get himself a road course win. He has yet to claim a road course victory for himself for this season, but that gap is only growing as, once again, Grosser is up into the 1.6 second strategy. And of course, the 3-stopper is it's a strategy that has been talked about. The 2015 race winner did use a 3-stop strategy and was able to push it all out through the end. And his overall pace is what got him that race victory. And it even had him set the race record as well for the Classic Indycar series. So it's the three-stopper strategy is a bit of an unorthodox one. Is one of the only drivers to do it, and I think it was that pace that actually put an extra lap on the boards in that 2015 race that forced Grosjean to make an extra stop to have to get himself to the end with a splash and go on fuel. Now we can see Lucas Laville trying to run down Jamie Wilson. Laville is still trying to work his way to get a third road course victory. That's pretty far out of his reach at the moment, unless Grosjean and Jim both make some pretty big mistakes. Laville, though, right now, he's just trying to get himself a podium position.
Yeah, Lucas is early. You know, we're early in this run, big time early, so just kind of settle in a little bit here now. He's putting a lot of pressure here on Jamie Wilson, trying to see if he can't force him into a mistake. He does have Matt Molnar right behind him in the number 5 as well, and Josh Vanderven back by another second. Then they've got about 3 seconds back to Ethan Egan and Josh Baird. So really, we're looking at a battle here between 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th potentially. A little further back as well. Egan, as I said, 3.1 seconds back of that group. Grosser, the lead right now, 1.3 seconds. A little trouble for Josh Baird and Christian Richter. That's Richter we're on board with now in the number 64.
Jan Hoffman has just had a huge spin, got turned by Christian Broadway hard into the wall in turn number 9, and that is going to put Jan Hoffman out of the race, no doubt. Rear wing completely gone, front wing all sorts of destroyed. On board with Hoffman now, who's now going to be down to 23rd place. This is on the exit of turn number 8, through the hairpin and right through the left-right flick in turn 9. A lot of sliding going on ahead of him as everybody was getting out of shape, and right there got absolutely sent into the wall.
So that was kind of a chain reaction, was it not? They got to the back of Christian Richter, kind of stacked everybody up coming through there. You see Richter gets sideways, and then in comes Hoffman trying to clean through, and those two drivers getting together. That's just a couple of drivers not giving each other room. And not even so much Richter, the driver on the outside that came back around. When you make a mistake like that and you get yourself bogged up and you're not coming out of a corner with a lot of forward bite, a lot of speed, you got to know everybody else is coming by and you got to hold your line. And that was tough to see. I don't think we needed that wreck at all. And again, so early. It surprised Nolan that, yeah, maybe not surprised, right? Because we talked about at the start of the broadcast how tough this track is to overtake on. So you know drivers are going to have to show patience. And sometimes when you're behind someone for a number of laps, patience is something that we kind of lose a bit. I think that's what we saw there. A couple of drivers just getting too aggressive here early on.
That has really split that third field up by a very big margin. So all of a sudden, that battle completely gone on the track. We'll have to wait to see if that will ever creep up again. Right now, you really have two different battles going on. You got Jas Vanderven trying to reel in Matt Molnar for 5th place, and Luke Laville still trying to run down Jamie Wilson for 3rd place up there. And these two guys, or what, really these four, were looking pretty close in their respective battles about half a lap ago. But already you can see just how much it has spread out, and that just goes to show how much the difference can be throughout the course of this race. I would like to mention Robert Grosser is losing time to Joshua Chin up front as well. Chin is reeling him back in. So potentially a mistake from Grosser has allowed Joshua Chin to close up over a half a second. He's now only 1.2 behind, and that gap is still running down.
No, and I think the key thing here is we don't really know what pit strategy either of these guys is going on. Let's say Grosser's going on a 2-stop and potentially Chin on a 3-stop strategy. You know, that we're going to see Grosser a lot later into the run, right? If he ends up trying to go a lot longer, and let's say lap number 28, as if we see Chin come in early, then we'll know. So obviously at this point here, Grosser's kind of trying to just really take care of that lead he's got. It's 1.2 seconds still. He just turned his fast lap. He went back to a 1:15 flat and then went down to a 1:14.5. It's almost to me like Grosser just trying to maintain the gap that he has on Chin to find out when each of these guys is going to pit. Because somebody on a 3-stop strategy, they're coming in a lot earlier, lap 21. We're still a long way from that particular opportunity to find out what people are doing. But I really think Grosser's just doing what he can right now to maintain a lead over Joshua Chin.
Well, not only that, but it is a timed race, remember, so you do not want to get caught out with an extra lap on the boards and have yourself be a lap short on fuel. That's what happened to Grosser in his 2015 campaign here at Zolder. And that's what cost him. It didn't cost him a victory, but it certainly cost him a couple spots as well. Taking a ride on board with Karsten Broadway. He's running 11th right now, trying to run down Christian Richter. These are two drivers that were getting really close, and this was actually the two sliders that checked up the field that sent Jan Hoffman hard into the wall. So this is that battle starting to pick on up, it would seem, as right now Karsten Broadway is doing a good job to reel in Christian Richter. Of course, it is going to be the question of, can he be able to pass Richter? once he gets to it, because this track really does take that phrase where catching is one thing, passing is another, to a whole new level.
I also think that anytime we see a battle like this, if someone makes even the minor mistake, most drivers here are going to have to try to capitalize, even if it may not be a perfect opportunity, because it's so tough to pass. If somebody makes a bit of mistake, drops a wheel here, potentially, misses an apex by whatever it may be, a couple of feet, they're going to have to take full advantage and potentially force the issue. Otherwise, you're just going to be stuck behind the guy in front of you. You have to take advantage of anything you possibly can. Again, looking out the rear of the number 64 Christian Richter, you can see Karsten Broadway continue to put the pressure on, gets a good run down. He'll have a look coming to the inside. No, can't quite get the job done down in turn number 5, and we're going to see a lot of that. Look how much ground he lost. Have a look to the inside. No one wasn't able to make the pass, but did put the pressure on. I think that's the key. He's got the speed to get there. Here's the replay. Thinks about going to the inside, but decides not to. But he's continually putting pressure on Christian Richter. He'll close back up on it again, and then we'll have another fight.
And Karsten Broadway just lost even more time, wed off the circuit. He actually, it was a big moment from Christian Richter. He got loose out of the turn 7 chicane, and actually he might have had a moment in the chicane as well. And this was, of course, Broadway going off the circuit, and that's lost him even more time now. And unfortunately, it's just all gone wrong for Karsten Broadway, who's now going to have to find himself in a defensive battle against place behind. That was Richter having his own sideways moment out through turn number 7, and that was close in of itself. And there you can see Broadway going off the track, probably a bit startled by that slide, and put himself definitely offline and carried too much speed through the corner. Right now, though, that battle for third is, of course, reeling down as well. Lucas Laville is again closing the gap to Jamie Wilson, and Matt Molnar is slowly creeping up to both of them, so we could find ourselves in a 3-car scrap for that final podium position. Molnar locks it up behind and almost skates it across the chicane. Right now, Laville is on the hunt.
Fastest driver, actually, Lucas Laville on that last lap, a 1:14.5, significantly faster than Jamie Wilson, over a full half-second quicker. You can see how much pressure he's pushing on him now. Laville, who made that minor error up in turn number 1, but was able to catch it. The car had some entry oversteer, almost looped it around, but of course a driver of the caliber of Lucas Laville, 2 times the winner this year, did a tremendous job to bring it back. They worked their way through turn number 10, back by start-finish again. We'll continue to watch lap times. A good run here for Laville. Tough to make the pass because turn 1, we talk about lots of braking zones, but turn 1, to be honest, still a third gear corner. It's not like you're even down to second. They grab a bit of fourth coming out of turn number 1, back down to third for turn 2. They hold third all the way through, grab fourth, work their way through turn number 4 here right now, and then 5th and 6th coming down the corner, this straightaway here to the clean chicane. That's a tough place to get by as well. We saw Broadway look to the inside of Richter, was not able to get the job done there. And to be honest, Laville showing the patience Nolan, other drivers have not as of yet.
In all honesty, I wouldn't even bother making looks into these chicanes unless you have the full intent of sending it up the inside into the chicane, because otherwise you're just going to find yourself offline and you're going to lose so much time. One car hard into the wall behind them. That's Randy Shoemake. What happened here? For the number 2 machine, taking a look at a replay, this was coming through the turn 10 chicane, and I'm a bit lost as to what happened. Oh, look, there was actually problems up ahead. Caleb Weekly lost the back end, blinked out of existence. It was seen. Randy Shoemake just creamed him. It was seen. Got the car up in the air. There it is. Huge hit for Shoemake, who got up in the air almost over the Armco barrier on the exit of turn 1.
Yeah, simply nowhere to go. Caleb Weekly, there's kind of what we saw out of Lucas Laville. Laville was able to save it. Caleb was not. And again, coming through, Randy Shoemake cleared him out. Both those drivers falling down the order to 20th and 21st right now. That's a tough one for Randy Shoemake. He came into the event here today sitting 8th place in points. Had a rough go at Brands Hatch as well. Was running strongly here in the top 10. Minor little mistake out of Caleb Weekly. Not able to control the car as Lucas Laville did. And, when you're right in the middle of the racetrack on the exit of turn number 1, Nolan, I just talked about how fast that corner is. You're down from 5th down to 3rd, just 2 knocks down on the gear paddle on that one. You're carrying a lot of speed through that corner. He's getting pressured from behind, and you find yourself with a yellow car sitting perpendicular on the racetrack. Absolutely nowhere to go.
Bit of an unfortunate situation there. The gap between your 2 race leaders, Joshua Chin and Robert Groscher, has closed down significantly, likely from the help of Mark McEwen, who is a lap car that is now 1 lap down. So potentially your race leader getting a little held up by lap traffic already. Just 15 minutes into this race. That's allowed Joshua Chin to close in within drafting distance. The thing is Chin has got to remain within drafting distance so he can try to capitalize with the runs that he can get on the ends of the straightaways. The gap is up at about 0.65 up to about 0.7 of a second right now. And right now, Chin is looking to continue to run down Grosser. Grosser is looking for his first win of the season here as well. He has gotten close before, and if you remember, I think he was pretty close to winning the 2015 race as well. But unfortunately, like we said, he had to make that extra pit stop to make sure he could actually make it to the end. The gap's still closing, though. Big lock from Chin, though, going into the turn 7 chicane.
Still very early in this race, an hour and a half still to go on that time limit. We're only putting lap number 13 in the books. We're working lap 14 now. Lap number 21 opens up the pit window for those drivers on a 3-stop strategy, but they can go as long as they want into that stint. We know that they can go about 28 laps on a tank of fuel, so a long way to go still here in terms of seeing who is on what kind of strategy. And again, Robert Grosser, veteran driver, being very smart here right now, just holding that gap. It's really been anywhere between 1.2 and now down to about 0.8 of a second between he and Chin. Last time by, Grosser quicker by about 0.2 of a second. And Chin, I think, is in the same place. He's not really trying to get too aggressive here. We'll see whether or not they're on 2 or 3-stop strategies. I think that'll be really interesting to me. Otherwise, Chin just putting a lot of pressure on. It's more issues. Another one of the Vortex drive. Lucas Laville. More trouble for Laville in turn. That's turn number 1 again, Nolan.
Oh, dear. And was this one with help? He was actually having to go at Jamie Wilson around the outside. He just lost the back end all by himself on the entry. So another rare mistake from Laville. Had a huge run out of 10 down the pit straightaway here. You're going to see they never made contact. He just lost that car all on his own right at the apex. I'm not sure. It looked like he did keep it out of the barriers, but Lucas Laville has lost even more ground here. Ethan Hagen, though, having to go the inside of Jos Vandeven, makes the move done into the turn 7 chicane. And, well, taking one more look at that incident with Laville. So, again, very rare mistake from a guy that's been so dominant on the road courses. You don't see that all too often between, drivers that have gotten both their wins at the 2 road courses of the season.
Well, Nolan, I think that what that was is he had the best run that he had in quite a while. He was around the outside. He knew he wasn't going to be able to get the move done on the outside and tried to do the over-under. You could see him kind of waiting and trying to pinch back down. But and there's Laville. That's another issue with Laville coming out of turn number 10. I don't know whether he's happy with the car setup here right now. Here he comes back through turn number 1 again. A much different entry. Gets a little bit more shallow entry this time here to make sure the car's not coming around. Remember, he had that early issue where he got into the corner, tried to roll that corner, and got that mid-corner oversteer. And again, almost the same thing as he was trying to make the over-under on Jamie Wilson to take the spot away, asking too much out of the setup, and the car went around again on a very similar to what happened early. It just doesn't appear that he's going to be able to late apex turn number 1 to get the exit speed that he wants. That car just not giving him everything he needs.
You can see on the track map as well, that number 3 car is your race leader, Robert Grosser, and that 29 car, that's Lucas Laville. That's how far away 7th and 1st place are from each other. So Laville definitely not going to be in the hunt for a win today. And Joshua Chin did set a new fast lap, a 1:14.268, and I am pretty certain that with that lap, he has just beaten the official CIS race record, lap record here at the Circuit Zolder. The Belgian racetrack, I think Joshua Chin himself has just set himself a new lap record for a race session. You're going to have to get a little bit of confirmation on that, but it's looking very strong for Chin right now, who's continuing to reel in that gap.
Yeah, I believe you're right, Nolan. A 1:14.491, I think, was the existing race record set back in 2015 by Mark Usher. A 1:14.268, now the new race record. Now, again, we got a long way to go to see if someone can beat that, but indeed, as we run here on track, Joshua Chin with a new race fast lap record here in the Classic Indycar Series. Gap still about 0.6 of a second between Grosser and Chin. And we got to give Grosser some props. This guy is not new to this program. This is his 68th start in the Classic Indycar Series. 5 wins, 3-time champion back in 15, 16, and 17. Definitely wants to get himself back in the fight here as well for Vortex Sim Racing. As we said at the top of the show, Joshua Chin with the point lead by 23 over Lucas Laville. Grosser back by about 95 points right now. He's got to step things back up and work his way back forward. Actually, not quite 95 points. I think it's more like around 81 points between first and all the way back to Grosser. A victory here, though, Nolan, would be huge for him. A lot of pressure up front. as Chin's starting to get there, but I think Grosser realizes he needs to get a race win here pretty soon if he wants to insert himself back into the championship conversation.
Yes, indeed. And, well, Joshua Chin, another fastest lap, a 1:14.169. The previous lap record for a race in 2015 was a 4:91. So Joshua Chin has bested that time by almost 0.4 of a second right now. So Chin is on a flyer right now, and he is doing an absolutely fantastic job. Franz Josef Stum appears like he has had some issues. Big lockup, checks it up, and who is that right behind him that had to take evasive action? Great job with that car right behind. I think this was your battle for 18th place, and that was a great job for whoever that was behind Stum to
Johnny
not
Garrett,
get caught up in that.
I think that might have been Johnny Garrett.
So Johnny Garrett doing a fantastic job, and Josef Stum just a bit too deep into the braking zone. That's all she wrote. A great job there from a couple of cars, but some trouble still approaching some of these drivers early on in this race, as we're still not 45 minutes through this race. Battle on for third place still. Matt Molnar trying to run down Jamie Wilson for third place now. Of course, Molnar has taken over that fourth position from Luke LaVille after LaVille has had 2 incidents in a row. So LaVille certainly faltering, but if you ask me, that just shows how challenging this track is to see a guy that's been so dominant on the road courses over the course of the season being caught out like that so easily.
Well, and I think the interesting thing for me too, Nolan, is the fact that we're talking about Vortex Sim Racing. This is one of the top teams in this program. They do a tremendous job putting together their race setups, and they've got one of their drivers, Robert Grosser, leading the way. You got to expect that he's got a very similar setup to that of Lucas LaVille. Lucas having a lot of trouble coming through turn number 1 on a couple of the corners here where he's potentially having a bit of issues. Now, was there any contact potentially with something, or did he hit a curb coming through, whatever it may be? Is there damage to that car right now? Because this is not something we would expect to see out of Lucas LaVille. He's been picture perfect in terms of consistency on the road courses here in this particular season. I'm so surprised to see the mistake, the initial mistake in turn number 1. I'm not so surprised by the one trying to get to the inside of Jamie Wilson. I think he was asking a lot of the setup on the tires to try to do the over-under there, carrying as much speed as he was. We've just seen that mid-corner oversteer from LaVille in a couple of corners here. It'd be interesting to see whether he can make some adjustments and try to fix that setup a little bit when we come into pit lane.
The gap is still closing between 4th and 3rd, and indeed 1st and 2nd. The gap was down to just 0.2 of a second down the pit straight between Chin and Grosser. And now you can still see Wilson and Molnar having their own little go at it here for 3rd place. So you got 2 really, really good battles that are going on for the podium positions here in round number 5 of the Classic IndyCar Series. The pit window is going to be opening up here in just a few laps' time for a lot of drivers. I believe the fuel window you can really extend it out to is about 28 to 29 laps total for a lot of these drivers. So that's going to be very crucial for a few of these. Molnar deeper on the brakes into the chicane, has a bit of a moment on the exit though, it nearly runs into the sand. That's going to lose him about 1/10 of a second or two to Jamie Wilson up in front, but reeling it back in the huge lockup as well from Molnar. He is definitely on the prowl as Molnar. He's got to be careful here that he doesn't drive it too deep into the corners and locks it up and slides up into the sand, because that's how you lose all of your time right there. Having a look at it down into the hairpin. Still not close to it can work, but he has scared Wilson into a bit of a mistake. Running. Oh,
mistake!
No!
Mistake for Molnar as he tries to get on the power too much. Nolan coming out of turn number 8. We'll watch the replay on that. Had to look to the inside, gets it back out again. Just trying to get back on the throttle a little bit, and you can see he was probably spinning the rears, and it went around. The number 5 machine was running right there in the 4th position. That's going to put Ethan Egan to P4. Going to bring LaVille back up. Here's the replay again. Trying to get back on it. Back on the throttle. You can just see the wheel just snap on him. Tough one there for Matt Molnar, and the Archer Brothers eSports machine was looking so strong, trying to put the pressure on Wilson for P3.
You know what happened there is he saw that Wilson had blocked it up going into the corner and ran wide, so he was trying to get on the power, because if he had gotten that good, he would have been alongside him into the turn 10 chicane. He just got a little too opportunistic on the throttle, and that's what sent that car around, like you said. A self-inflicted mistake after pressuring his main opponent into a mistake as well. That's not Ethan Egan now up into that 4th place position. He's going to have to still reel his way on in. And right now it's looking very good for your fight for the lead as well between Joshua Chin and Robert Grosser as well. Still running 1-2 up in front.
Yeah, so the pit window definitely open. Obviously, you know, if you were to do 3 stops, you essentially can split it up into 4 21-lap stints to get yourself to lap 84. But because of that, knowing we can go longer, we can probably end up going a little later in the run. Drivers could be already into pit lane right now. Most drivers still staying out. I don't think we've seen anybody come into pit lane as it is, but the pit window definitely opening. And again, we talked about it. Will people be doing 2 stops? Who's going to try potentially a 3-stop strategy? I'll be intrigued to see who does that. Another driver off the racetrack, Christian Richter. Back, he was now in the 15th spot, lost a couple positions. Just a little bit of trouble coming to the chicanes. And I don't know, you mentioned it at the very start of the broadcast, Nolan. There are drivers that are going to have issues with these chicanes, especially going later in the run, because we're talking about an hour and 45 minutes of total focus, and you have to get through the first apex of these chicanes perfectly. When you don't, that's when mistakes happen, and we're seeing that already early on.
Andrew Aiken at the same time had his own moment and lost 12th place when he had his moment down in the turn 8 hairpin at the bottom of the racetrack, locked it up and just lost it again, just like Matt Molnar did, trying to get on the throttle. Thankfully did not hit the wall. So Jamie Wilson is going to be trying to run down Ethan Aiken, is going to be trying to run down Jamie Wilson here for that final podium position, and still your top 2 have not really changed at all. Actually, they have. Rob Grosher made a mistake. Chin is in the wall. He's in the wall. Joshua Chin has just thrown it away after Robert Grosher handed in the lead. There's clearly been some events that have transpired here. Going to try to find out what happened to Grosher to give Joshua Chin the lead. I think he might have hopped the chicane, and in fact, he did. Grosher overshot the turn 5 chicane, got a slowdown penalty. That gave Chin the lead, and then Chin just completely threw his chances of winning this race away through the turn 1 hairpin. So again, the road course is catching Joshua Chin out. This is going to be seriously damaging to his championship lead here.
Unbelievable to see the 2 drivers who have dominated the action so far here in this campaign, Joshua Chin and Lucas Laville, both struggling with turn number 1. Of course, Laville winning both road course races. Chin, as we talked about at the start, doing whatever he could to kind of have a recovery. This is Grosser going off. That's the replay of Grosser having trouble coming through the chicane there over in turn number 5. So that is what kind of opened things up for Chin to take the lead. On board again here. This is the replay as they work their way through here. This is coming through turns number 7. Let's roll through 7, back over to turn number 8, again down to turn 8, first gear corner. High RPM in these particular cars, so that's why we got the spin earlier on by Matt Molnar. But here's the shot again. Watching on board with Grosser, he probably cannot believe what is happening here, Nolan, as he's lost the lead, having to give it back up with the slowdown penalty, and then he's going to get the lead after an issue here for Chin. Incredible.
So a couple drivers definitely still having some difficulties, and you'll see as Chin just loses it all on his own on the AstroTurbo there. It slams the wall, and that's put Chin out of the race. And Adair Saunders has had a moment as well. He was in a very fierce fight, and he ended up losing it in the turn 5 chicane as well in the number 4 car. Had a look around Christian Richter up in front, and unfortunately he himself lost in the turn 5 chicane as well. Those curves are just unsettling a lot of cars. It's the low gear, high revs that are causing a lot of problems for a few of these drivers, and that's of course what caught out Matt Molnar. One other car was into the grass as well. As we went back to live pictures, who in the world was that? So all of a sudden, everybody is just having some serious difficulties with this place. And that was Tristan Hauser that went off.
Yeah, another one of the Vortex Sim Racing drivers having some trouble coming through the chicane, working his way back around turn number 7, the double apex right-hander, and just the car got away from him on the exit of that corner coming through turn number 7. He has to back it up and get going again. Hauser's going to fall down the field all the way to 17th position. And I'll tell you, a lot more issues than I think that we expected, Nolan. Drivers here struggling coming on exit power, trying to get that power back down. And that's a third gear corner. It's not like he's down into first gear as we talked about. That's third gear. You should be able to get the power down, so Hauser falling to the tail. Robert Grosser, though, has a pretty solid lead now. Now, think about this. He's driving up front, makes a mistake. You know he was beating on himself for making that mistake and having to slow down to give the lead back up to Joshua Chin. Now he finds himself with a almost 15-second advantage over Jamie Wilson. Vortex Racing looking to get another win, trying to go back-to-back. Lucas Laville, after his issues, finds himself back up here into third. Looks like we have some drivers, though, potentially coming to pit lane.
You think he just completed a scheduled pit stop, and he's come out right behind the battle for 10th behind him. Art McEwen having to let through Andrew Wood, a lapped car that was trying to, was holding up a couple of the leaders. So pit stop window is very much open, and it seems like, one driver looking to come down a little bit earlier than others, it would seem, as no other drivers elected to come down on that lap. We'll have to keep an eye on your race leader, Robert Groscher. All of a sudden, Groscher is in prime position to absolutely run away with the win here, because Joshua Chin was really the only driver that was putting pressure on, and nobody else has been getting close to him. He's been pulling away from everybody else since the start of this race, and now with that, his only competition's out of the race now.
And the key thing as well is with the departure of Chin, if Grosser's on a two-stop strategy, he's got a 15-second lead. He can totally go on fuel save mode, exactly what he would need. Remember, he tried to do that before, back in 2015, didn't quite work, as the eventual winner did the three-stop, was able to get that one extra lap, get underneath, but right before the time limit expired. That allowed, or forced Grosser rather, to go one more lap, and he was needed to make that pit stop. He has got 15.2 seconds now on Jamie Wilson. Totally plays into his ability to completely leverage the strategy he's laid out here today.
If barring any issues for Groscher, and I can tell you right now that the commentator's curse is most likely going to strike the second I say this, I think Groscher will very well have this race completely tied up. I mean, he's got absolutely nobody he needs to compete with right now. Wilson has been dropping back. He's been falling back. In fact, Lucas Laville has caught up to Jamie Wilson, as a matter of fact, in that 87 machine. So, you got battles that are now starting to pick back up again. Now Laville is trying to get himself in the second position, and this would be huge for the championship, because Joshua Chin is going to drop well down the order. Laville's going to be finishing at least probably about 15 spots ahead of him. One car has gone off. Jos Vandeven has had difficulties in the 167 for the Outcast Racing team. This is down to, once again, the turn 8 hairpin. Lost on the power once again. First gear high revs causing difficulties for a lot of drivers with wheel spin on the exit of these corners.
Yeah, tough part of the corner. The only time you go down to first gear, this particular racetrack, in turn number 8, to be able to get out of that corner cleanly. And we've seen a number of drivers struggle getting the power back on, coming out of 8 and through that little chicane of turn number 9. Number of drivers in the pit lane here right now. Luka Lejcevic in the pit lane for his stop, 11.3 seconds. Packed that thing full of fuel for sure. 2 stops seems to be the order of the day. I think if anybody was going to go on a 3-stop, we would have saw them potentially a bit earlier. Plus, they'd be pushing hard and not saving any fuel at all. You got to expect a driver on a 3-stop would have been able to get out front early, being able not to save fuel. But Grosser, of course, doing a tremendous job out front. There's Luka Lejcevic, as we said, now back into the 14th spot. We'll wait for everybody to come in for that first pit stop to see where they all cycle out. But right now, tremendous run so far. Lucas Laville continuing to put the pressure, trying to get by now. Oh, caught up by the slower car, the lap car, not able to get by. That's one of the Chimera cars. Getting a run down the front straightaway back here again. Rather into, no, that's not the front straight, that's the back straight into turn number 5, I believe. But yeah, Lucas Laville having a bit of trouble trying to close up to Jamie Wilson.
Yes, indeed. And, the 73, Luka Lejcevic, might actually have an unsafe rejoin penalty coming up for him here in a minute, because it looked like he did cross over that white line on the exit of the pit lane. You're not allowed to cross over that white line. And Lejcevic did just that, so it seemed that potentially the 73 car having some difficulties. If you take a look at the replay, Laville having a look on Wilson, and Wilson letting him go down into
McBride.
That
was Niall McBride.
Oh, excuse me, Niall McBride.
Yeah.
Having a little look at him. So some things not updating quite yet on my end. And, I'll tell you what, the battle has certainly been very good. A lot of drivers have been doing a fantastic job at trying to circle their way through, as you still got drivers coming down to the pit lane here. Your race leader, Robert Groscher, is down to the lane right now, as Jamie Wilson likes to take it out for one more lap. Laville also down to the lane as well, so it looks like Lucas Laville trying to go for an undercut here on Jamie Wilson.
Yeah, he got caught up there by Niall McBride. That was one of Wilson's Team Chimera teammates, and got caught up coming out there, not able to get by and lost some gap. And said, you know what, bottom line is let's get into the pit lane. Let's make the adjustment. Robert Grosser down and away, 12.8 seconds for Grosser, a little bit slower than Lejcevic, but remember, he wanted to make sure he got that thing full of fuel because he's on a 2-stop strategy. He's got 28 laps, exactly what he told me earlier. 28 lap stints for him would get him to the end. He'll need 3 stints of 28 gate. Some fuel save will be needed. Lucas Laville about a second quicker on the pit stop. 11.2 for Laville. Will indeed he be able to jump ahead of Jamie Wilson? We would expect to see Wilson potentially coming into pit lane next. Here comes that pit strategy right now and getting the in-lap and the out-lap, the 87 on board with him right now. This is Jamie Wilson, and indeed coming to pit lane.
Christian Richter had another spin at the turn 5 chicane, jumping once again over the curbs, unsettles the back end of the car, and just spins right around. So that chicane, the turn 5 chicane is really catching a lot of drivers out. That's where we've seen a majority of our little spins throughout the course of the day. It's where we saw our big lead change as well before Joshua Chin binned it hard. Wilson, though, down to the lane. Question will be, will this one go in the hands of Lucas Laville, as he's actually side by side with the driver? That's going to hold him up a bit here, as he was behind the 68 car, had to let off earlier than he would have liked to get into his pit stop. That was Johnny Garrett that he got held up by. That's not going to help Wilson either. Laville now through turn number 10, the turn 10 chicane, down the pit straightaway. I would not be surprised if we saw Laville jumping ahead here, but already Jamie Wilson out of the pits, an 11.9 second stop, as here comes Lucas Laville through turn number 1. Jamie Wilson's jumped ahead by a decent margin here, no doubt helped by, of course, that incident where Laville got held up by Wilson's teammate.
Well, that's going to be in-lap and out-lap there for sure, because the bottom line is that Laville was quicker by 0.6 of a second on the pit stop itself. But remember, a longer run. I would love to go back and check out what the fast lap was that last time by. I don't have it in front of me because of the way the lap kind of shook down. But I have a feeling that Jamie Wilson was able to get a really strong lap, and we know how much Lucas Laville was caught up, not able to jump. If he was indeed 0.6 of a second faster on the stop, but that lap where he got held up behind McBride has given Wilson the gap he still needs. On board here with Lucas Laville getting held up again here by the 64 machine. That's Christian Richter trying to get around. Got to be very cautious coming out of turn number 8. We see drivers spin there when they go down to first gear. There's that gap right now between Wilson and Laville, about 1.1 seconds as they work their way back to the chicane of turn number 10.
So a couple drivers still having their own little scraps as this race goes on. Carson Broadway reeling himself into Josh Baird. Baird currently in a battle for 7th place with Luka Lekjevic, who still out on the racing surface after taking his own pit stop. And, well, it seems like that unsafe rejoin is not going to be a factor for Luka Lekjevic, because did not get a penalty for that, it would seem. So iRacing being lenient on this one today. Carson Broadway trying to run down 8th place of Josh Baird behind them, as he got a 3-car scrap here for 7th place. A bit spaced down, and Baird loses it, loops it in the turn 10 chicane. And was that just hopping over the curves once again? It looks like it might have been, and the fact it was, jumping over the speed bumps down the inside of the corner of the curbing as well. But this is something we've seen a lot throughout the course of today. You know, drivers just getting caught out by the curves on the inside of this racetrack. And, you know, it was something we talked about even before the race as well. And, well, it's definitely coming into full strength today. And that's it's part of the challenge of this racetrack, really.
I almost want to say, and watching what we've watched so far here for 30 laps, is the challenge of this racetrack, at least today with these particular race cars, as we saw that a little bit of trouble there for Josh Baird. Had the car turned in pretty aggressively, got up over top of the curb, and around it went. Car placement, we keep saying that. You have to make sure, especially if you're going to attack the curbs as you have to in all the chicanes here at Zolder, you really have to have the car placed to the point where you're getting ready to go back on throttle at the right time. Here's a scrap here between Andrew Adair Saunders as he's getting around the outside of I believe, Johnny Garrett. Garrett in that number 68 machine running 13th, actually in front, so that was potentially Richter he got by. Saunders trying to close back up. Again, good run out of the corner here. Again, working those chicanes. And that has been kind of the issue, Nolan. We've seen throughout the day a lot of drivers really struggling with car placement coming through here. We've seen some issues on the throttle too early. This track at Zolder, man, it's hard to pass on, but it's a really challenging track to get down good laps consistently.
Indeed it is, and you saw Andrew Adair Saunders. He lost that position coming out of the pits, was side by side through turns 2 and 3, and just could not get himself on the throttle in time because did not have the tires up at temperature, so that cost Saunders a spot as he's going to try to run down Johnny Garrett once again. Battle looking to be on for 2nd place, though, here shortly, as Jamie Wilson about just under a second from Lucas Laville, who is just up the road at the turn 10 chicane. And this is, again, a battle that we've seen developing, and it's probably going to be a battle throughout the entire course of this race, as Laville definitely seems to be very even in pace with Jamie Wilson. And it looks like one other car has had issues. This one is Andrew Aitken for the Aero X team in this 27 car. Did he loop it on his own on the exit? Yes, he did. Beautiful save there. Oh, never mind. As I say that, it was a beautiful save of the 27, and then just got on the throttle a bit too early before the car had gotten fully back underneath him, and that finished him off.
I think that's it. Fully back underneath him, right? He was coming through the corner. The thing started to go around on him. I think he felt like he had it saved, rolled back on the throttle, and around it went. Man, we ever had a lot of drivers struggling with keeping that power coming through turn number 1. Lucas LaVille being 2 times the winner already this year. This is a guy that finished second in the championship back in 2007. He's won 10 races in the Classic Indycar Series, including the last 2 road course races. So if Lucas LaVille could have trouble in turn number 1, I would think anybody in this program can have trouble in that opening corner. Right now, he's back up to 3rd. What I find interesting for him, I wonder what the mindset is for Lucas LaVille now, because as we remember, he already had a chance to try to get by Jamie Wilson. Let's have a quick look at the replay here on board, watching the number 40 of Art McEwen. He drives off down in turn number 10 to get out of the way, let people come through. So a clean run there for Art McEwen, letting the rest of the field get through over in turn number 8.
Ethan Hagen having another slide for himself, and this is one car that's off. That's Jos Vandenen. That's had some more troubles, and guess where that one is? If it's the turn 5 chicane, you'd be absolutely correct. So the turn 5 should continue to catch people out, a bit deep on the brakes. This one actually a bit different though. Spins off to the right side of the racetrack and not on the left. You don't see that one too often. I think that's one of the first spins we've seen in that fashion all day. Unsettled on the turn 5A curbing this time. So the entry, another car off the 68 machine now, having his own difficulties. That's Johnny Garrett, who was in his own space. That's going to give Andrew Adair Saunders a good spot as well here. And that might let him up in the 14th place as well. Johnny Garrett having another spin. This one now in the turn 7 chicane, it would look like. Oh, we got it from behind.
Yeah, there was contact from behind there for sure on Johnny Garrett. That might have been Stefan Rossman sliding through. We'll try to pick up the number of the driver that got involved there, and that could be something that race control may look at. That was contact.
That was Andrew Adair Saunders, the driver he was battling with.
Okay. So, yeah, we may see something here. Yeah, there's a replay of it there. Straight contact coming into the braking zone of turn number 7, as you had said, Nolan. So, yeah, I would be surprised if race control has to look at this. We'll go on board with them again. Didn't see the contact, obviously, there, but contact most definitely happened between those 2 drivers coming in just based on visual. So Saunders, who currently runs now in the 11th position, could potentially get something, a call in from race control. Here's this battle again. Lucas LaVille, big run, trying to get that pass done on Jamie Wilson. Back down to the chicane again of turn number 5. Working their way back to sweeping turn number 6 over to 7. LaVille, as I had said before, I'll finish the thought that I had, Nolan, was the fact that here's a guy that had the issue, was trying to do the over-under, had that one opportunity to try to get by Jamie Wilson, but wasn't able to capitalize, actually looped his Vortex sim racing machine around. Through the way the race has kind of played out, he's been able to work his way back up here. A second shot potentially for Lucas. You have to wonder what's going on in his mind, thinking, how am I going to get the pass done this time? How do I not make the mistake this time so I can go to P2?
Just an hour remaining in this race now, and now that we're approaching that halfway point, let's give a quick word to, of course, the main sponsor of the series, the Virtual Race Car Engineer. It is a software package that includes the Setup Developer Tool and the Virtual Race Car Engineer, which both assist real and virtual race car drivers. The Setup Developer Tool walks the user through a step-by-step process of creating and customizing your very own personalized baseline race setup. It does so by asking simple questions about the car type, track type, and behavior of the car on the course. The Virtual Race Car Engineer further fine-tunes the baseline setup to get the most out of the car, with it offering whole lap and corner-specific advice. VRCE will get the very best out of your setup. Both the Setup Developer Tool and the Virtual Race Car Engineer can be found in the link below. And I'll tell you what, this has been a very good race so far, as this battle continuing to reel on in. Just under an hour remaining now, Rob, and I have a feeling that we got a lot of battles yet that are still to be decided, and they might just end in a couple more spins.
Yeah, I think one of the big things here storyline-wise is the fact, number one, drivers are struggling, and everybody's struggling, other than Robert Grosser, although he did have that one mistake where he had to pass the lead back to Joshua Chin, so indeed essentially everybody has had some issues. So yeah, this track has been unbelievably challenging today, and I think knowing that we're still, about an hour to go until we see the checkered flag, there's a lot of opportunity for every one of the racers still on track to make that error that could drop them down the field. I think the second key right now is the fact that we're still there's another driver out there as well. Once again, that is the number 4 of Andrew Adair Saunders in the iconic motorsports machine. He had the issue. We'll go on board and watch the replay here as he comes into turn number 1. This corner, turn 1, third gear corner has been so tough. He's actually going to drive all the way off. Had to do a mid-corner correction. Almost looked like he had a bit of understeer coming through the corner, maybe trying to carry a little too much speed. He had to go off and bring it back on. But we still have another pit stop to come, and I think lap cars are going to play a crucial role. We saw how the lap car got in front of Lucas Laville. He was not able to jump over top, even with a better pit stop time than Jamie Wilson, was not able to take advantage of that. Look for Robert Grosser to potentially come into pit lane in another 22 laps, still a long ways away. I'm going to say, actually 20 laps. I'm going to say potentially lap 56 or 57 could be the pit stop for Robert Grosser. A 13.6 second lead now, really in the driver's seat, as he's going to be able to take care of fuel saving.
Still waiting for drivers to see if we can best Joshua Chin's personal best lap time of a 1:14.044. That lap time was set the lap before he had his major spin, which put him out of this race. So right now, even though Joshua Chin is out of the race, he is still holding the record for fastest race lap here at the Circuit Zolder in the Classic Indycar Series out of anybody that has ever driven in this series. So that's a huge achievement there from Joshua Chin. Unfortunately, he pushed a bit too hard and crashed just a lap later after setting that time. Still waiting to see if other drivers will maybe be able to break even into the 1:13s. We saw drivers in the 1:12s for qualifying. I would not expect us to see us really beating that time. I know that, meanwhile, Andrew Wood has been passed, or he has completed the pass on Jos Vandeven. These are two guys that have been battling it out for the past little while. The pass was complete into turn number 3, and now Vandeven might be trying to fight back here to retake 9th place away from Andrew Wood.
Yeah, Andrew, I think, probably understands right now there's an opportunity for him to make a big move, potentially closer to the lead. Of course, 36 points behind Joshua Chin coming in. Third in the points for Andrew Wood, with Chin, of course, out of the race. Everybody below him a chance to really tighten things up here in the championship. Wood now up into the 9th position, still quite a ways behind Josh Baird. In fact, a full lap back, I believe. I think the Grosser's been able to get by Andrew Wood and Josh Vandeven on the way back. So we'll see what happens with the drivers that continue to push their way forward here. But Andrew Wood, a solid top 10. Even, let's say he could get to the top 5, maybe try not to make any mistakes over the next 56 minutes. Could find himself with a really solid result here, which could potentially move him up the order. Not so much up the order, because I don't think he's going to be able to jump over Lucas Laville unless Lucas has an issue, but he can definitely close the gap to the driver currently leading the standings.
Lucas Laville might have had an issue, because I can see that one driver is actually, no, sorry, Lucas Laville is up in the 2nd place.
He's
so
got by.
Something's happened to Jamie Wilson here, because all of a sudden Wilson is all the way back and duking it out with Ethan Agan. So what happened to Jamie? He actually lost the car. And the exit at turn number 7 got a big tank slapper going on the car. On the exit of the corner, went off into the grass. That let Laville through. All of a sudden, Jamie Wilson is under threat here from Ethan Agan down in 4th place. So big problems for Wilson, who he's now side by side with Ethan Agan in the run down to the turn 10 chicane. This could get spicy here.
Watching the replay right now, Jamie Wilson will find out what happens to him coming down into turn number 5. Of course, Lucas Laville, you can see, putting a lot of pressure here. Again, this is the replay as Wilson now in real life in the middle of a battle, but we're going to watch him coming down here through 6, down to turn number 7. Of course, Wilson running P2, coming through the chicane, part of 7. Back here through the right-hander, double apex right-handed. Oh, we saw a couple drivers do that. Doesn't go all the way off in terms of spinning around, but does lose the rear. Again, exit oversteer, able to gather it back up again. And as we get back on board, well, here's the replay. This is the battle with he and Ethan Agan in the number 20. So not only did Jamie Wilson for Team Chimero lose 2nd from Lucas Laville, now he's battling it out here with Ethan Agan. This is the replay. Agan's right there.
Oh,
Agan has a bit of a tank slapper coming out of the corner as well. A lot of drivers struggling. Look at that little reset there for Ethan Agan. But he's putting a ton of pressure here on Wilson, who still holds on to P3.
Drivers have to make sure that they remain patient, because that's going to be a really crucial factor here for quite a few of these drivers to see if they can manage to keep things secured, as they're still side by side. A couple of drivers, you know, still having their own little moments here. This is still that replay between the battle. And I'll tell you what, this has been a good fight. There you can see Son's losing the back end behind them as well. Art McEwen is in a battle right now with Niall McBride, as well as McEwen locks it up and goes in. McBride finds his way through the turn 7 chicane, or hairpin. Now McEwen going to try to fight back in the run down to the turn 10 chicane. This is, of course, the battle for 18th place of the racing surface. So these two drivers are drivers that are laps down. Looks like McBride has made that move work, though.
Indeed, McBride able to get by the number 41 machine. We've seen better efforts out of now McBride for Team Chimera. Currently running back, as you said, in the 18th spot. This is Andrew Adair Saunders. But let's get back to this fight here as well. This is for that third position. Jamie Wilson having that issue over in turn number 7 between the two double apex right-handers. Ethan Egan, the independent driver, the number 20, putting a ton of pressure on from P4. He's got lots of room. He's got about 11 seconds back to Matt Molnar. So no pressure behind for Egan. So he can just see what he can do here. Take the opportunity to get a feel for what Jamie Wilson is doing. Obviously, we know that Lucas LaVille did that, put the pressure on twice. Tried to be able to get by in turn 1, had the issue there, but then was able to come back up, put a ton of pressure on Jamie Wilson, and actually forced him into that mistake over in turn number 7. That's what Egan's got to do here as well. Probably Egan has to do as well. And Nolan, that's what we talked about. This track is so tough to overtake. You have to force the guy in front of you non-stop. You have to be consistent in your application of pressure to have that one mistake, and then when you see it, you've got to take advantage of it.
Absolutely, and right now Ethan Egan is definitely trying to pile on the pressure to Jamie Wilson. Wilson has not been able to break away. He's a bit faster through the corners, but Egan is able to use these straights fully to his advantage. Actually gains a whole lot of time there. To turn 4, one car off.
That's a Vortex car.
It's one of the Vortex cars. I hope that wasn't Robert Groscher up the road.
Could have been Tristan Hauser. We're not seeing anything fall down the order at this point. Here's a replay. On board indeed with Tristan Hauser. Yeah, I didn't think it was either Grosser or LaVille. Just carried way too much speed into there. Not able to get the car down to the apex. So Tristan Hauser's had a rough day, back in 17th position right now for Vortex Sim Racing. Catches you off guard, though, Nolan, does it not? When you see the livery from Vortex and a driver off the racetrack, you'll wonder if it's first or second. Because right now, they're running P1 and P2. Grosser and LaVille heading the way here for Vortex Sim Racing. I think made us both have a little spike in our heart rates.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I thought the whole race was about to change, but, you know, so Tristan Hauser having a moment. Big tank slapper there from Ethan Egan as they cross onto the pit straight. These are the kind of mistakes that are really the reason why Egan is not caught up to Wilson. He's trying to get on the throttle just a little bit earlier, a bit harder, and that's what's causing that back end to step on. He has to let off, and he's losing time. But right now, he is definitely the faster car out of these two, because you can see that gap is closing. Expect a move from Egan into the turn 5 chicane once again. Much faster through turn number 4. He has the draft. Will he make the dive bomb down at the corner? Looking around, weaving a bit. Not nearly close enough, though, just yet to make that move. But this is something that where you can tell that a dive bomb here is probably more than inevitable.
Well, the only thing I would think I would wait, you know, you've got to keep pushing and see if you can't apply that pressure and make that mistake. You know that's still a long race. We haven't even got to the second pit stop. Is it the right time, knowing the amount of mistakes that people have made throughout the first half of this race? We've seen a lot of unforced errors. If a driver's able to keep their head and stay patient, I think they're probably going to be paid off more than if they made a low percentage move. It's going to be tough to get around Jamie Wilson right now for P3. Another pit stop still coming. We're still quite a ways away from that still. So when that comes, then potentially you have the in-lap, the out-lap, a really strong pit stop as well. After that, you can potentially roll the dice. I don't know that I'd do it right now, and I don't think we're going to see Ethan try anything low percentage at this point. He'll keep forcing the issue here to see if he can't get a mistake made.
Right now, Jamie Wilson is definitely extending that gap out. It's a lot further now than it was in that last lap. So Egan's pace dropping off. It was a 1:15.2 for Egan last time by a 1:15 flat for Wilson. But as you can see, Egan is so good through turn 4. He can carry so much speed, and that's where he's making up all this time, is in turn 4. He's really good in these faster corners, it would seem, not so much in the lower speed corners. So he's able to use that to keep at the draft, to reel himself in. He's really, I think he's going to have to make that move down to the turn 5 chicane, or he really is not going to be able to make this work for him. I mean, he's having so much struggle here trying to find his way up there, and it just is not working out for him. So I'll tell you what, it's been a good battle so far, and I can't wait to see how this one is going to develop.
And you mentioned that he's having some trouble in some of the slower corners, not quite even able to get enough pace coming through turn number 7 to get that run down into the first gear, turn 8. That's an opportunity when you're banging all the way down into first gear to get on the brakes and potentially get to the inside. We've seen drivers try to make that move. As another driver's gone around, that is the number 5 of Matt Molnar. He goes around on power coming out of turn number 8. We'll have a look at the replay here. Coming through turn number 7, or past the 7. This is turn 8 now. Up onto the curb. Getting back on the throttle just as he's getting on. You could see, you could feel it already coming, Nolan. It didn't go all the way around. He knew that car was starting to get away from him, able to save it and continue. And I don't think he even lost a lap or lost a position. No, he's still got such an advantage over Carson Broadway that he's still P5, but fallen even further back from the battle for 3rd and 4th between Wilson and Egan.
Taking a look on this one for a bit of a slower angle as we ride on board, and you'll see right about here he's already on the throttle, and that back end was coming out before he even started counter steering. You can tell that car was just gonna go around before it even started. Like, it's one of those things where you just kind of feel it, and unfortunately by the time it got the wheel turned around, it was a bit too late to save it. Egan is still trying to close into Jamie Wilson, and he is doing so. He's managing to reel the way in there. He's closing the gap. You just got to wonder, is it going to be enough? Going to look to the top 8 quickly. Grosher still leads. Lucas LaVille still down to 2nd by 15.5 seconds. 7 seconds back from him is Jamie Wilson, who's still locked in that battle with Ethan Egan. Matt Molnar, after having his brief spin, is in 5th. Carson Broadway in 6th. 5 seconds back up the road is Josh Barrett, and Luka Elektrovic, 1 lap down, sits in 8th.
Yeah, indeed, 24 drivers starting this race here today. Only 18 remain on track. Drivers out now. Andrew Aiken, Joshua Chin, the leader at the time, actually going out in turn 1. Caleb Weekly out as well. Of course, the contact with he and Randy Shoemate coming out of turn number 1, dropped them down the order. 21st and 22nd, respectively. Logan Simmons out as well. Jan Hoppen, first driver out in 25th. Having a little look at the weather we're seeing here right now. It's a very warm day here trackside. In terms of the temperature of the track itself, 99-degree track temperature. I would expect it'll cool down a little before we're all said and done, but I'll tell you, Nolan, so far the drivers from Vortex Sim Racing have things handled. A couple of mistakes from both of the drivers, one from Robert, a couple for Lucas LaVille, but nonetheless, they still run 1st and 2nd. I guess they're the ones that made the least amount of mistakes thus far.
You know, these are 2 drivers that have been so consistent. They've been so evenly paced with each other throughout the course of this. I mean, their times were less than a 10th apart the last time by the line. Another tank slapper there for Ethan Egan that he has to correct. It's these little twitches that are costing him time. Again, 2 laps, a 1:15.15 for Wilson, a 1:15.23 for Egan. Their times are less than a 10th apart every time. They're just so evenly matched. They just cannot break apart from each other, but Egan can't close in enough to get the pass done. I mean, last time through, he ran a bit wide in this corner and lost some time there. Now it's going to be Wilson that dips tires into the sand. This battle has just been going on for so long. You got to wonder, could this one potentially even be decided in the pit cycle that's coming up here in just a little bit?
Yeah, see, that's what I'm thinking, Nolan. There's an opportunity. It's so tough to pass here. You can see that Ethan, we believe, you and I are both saying he's probably quicker on the racetrack overall in terms of the speed he's able to put down in a full collective lap. It's just the parts of the racetrack where he's faster aren't giving him an opportunity to make an aggressive move. He can go deep onto the brakes to try to get by and make the pass, but he just can't quite get it done. Again, coming through turn 8 here now, working his way out through turn number 9, not close enough to make a move in 10, and even coming out of 10, he's not able to make the move and get it done in turn number 1. His best opportunity could likely be jumping in here to the pit stop as soon as the final pit window opens, or at least try to get in before Jamie Wilson. Although I tried to move to the inside of turn 1. He's down to the bottom of the racetrack. No, not quite able to get the job done.
A heads up for Tristan Hauger, who's going to come out right in front of this battle, forcing them both offline for turn 2. So all of a sudden, Egan is done waiting. He's wanting to make moves. Made the look down at turn 1 and got alongside him, but couldn't carry the speed through. These are momentum cars. You really do need to carry the momentum through the corners to maintain the speed, and you're just not able to do that when you're taking a tighter line than the car to the outside, which is why passes around the outside have been so commonplace, you know, through turns 2, 3, and indeed 4. Egan is still reeling in that gap, and this is honestly just it's an incredible battle here, and I can't wait to see how this is going to shape up.
Yeah, I feel the same way right now. This is unbelievably exciting, and I love the fact we're having this tremendous battle for these guys here in third and fourth. We'll keep looking at lap times right now. LaVille's, well, I was going to say the last lap, LaVille was trying to close back up a little bit, but he's not. It's really just a domination here for Robert Grosser, who's been perfect other than that one little chink in the armor. He has got a 16-second lead, but this battle here is the one I'm loving. I can't wait to see how it ends up shaking down. I'm looking forward to what happens within the pit stops as well. Two-stop strategy puts us in the pits on around lap 56. That will be about 8 laps from now. It'll be interesting to see which driver likes to come into pit lane first.
Ethan Agan still trying to run him down, taking a bit of a tighter line through turns 2 and 3. He's going to take a wider one, though, to turn number 4. That is going to give him a bit of a run, though. Down the straight to the turn 5 chicane. Wilson going to go defensive. Moves to the right side. Agan goes to the left. Then has to dump back to the right. Cannot get close to make that move work. And almost running in the gravel is Jamie Wilson. So these two drivers still looking to duke it out. Down through the turn 7 chicane now. It's either going to, I think it's honestly going to be for this one, either a pit stop decided battle or it's going to be a battle decided in a mistake. Both these drivers have made their little twitches, the little chinks in the armor. Ethan Agan has made the most of them. Agan is, in my opinion, the quicker of the two. He just can't get in there because he's constantly having these little oversteer moments on the exit of the corners. He's just had another one through the turn 8 hairpin, and now down into the turn 10 chicane. Will he get another one, or will he get a run on him down the pit straight? A big tank slapper for him on the exit of the corner. Still not going to make it work, but that has just cost him a massive amount of time. All of a sudden, Ethan Agan, almost a second separating him and Jamie Wilson, already back down to 0.4 of a second. This battle, really the only one on track right now, as a matter of fact. You don't have anybody else that's side by side on the racing surface with each other. It's just these two drivers, and there you see the replay of Ethan Agan having this big moment. I'll tell you what, this is, guys, this has definitely been an extreme battle for a lot of these drivers. Ethan Agan still looking to run him down, and Wilson looking to go on the defensive. Another bite of oversteer for Agan on through the turn 10 chicane, and you got to wonder, as he had it the last time through, now going through turn 7, how long is it going to be before one of these bites gets the better of him?
Well, either driver, right? That's the whole key right now, and we've seen this. It doesn't matter who you are. We've watched one of the best road course drivers we have in this series in Lucas LaVille make two unforced errors trying to make overtaking moves down in turn number 1. Anybody here can make that minor mistake. They're obviously all racing here right on the razor's edge. And this is LaVille right now, who runs now in second spot. We've seen him make mistakes as well, so anybody can have that unforced error, and that's why this battle between Jamie Wilson and Ethan Agan is so good. Watching now Lucas LaVille work his way up on one of the slower cars to be able to get through here. Again, drivers on the lead lap now, just 6 remain on the lead lap, I believe, here, as Robert Grosser putting on an absolute display of how to work his way around here at Zolder. And you got to go back to the fact that he was the champion in 2015 when we ran here last in this classic Indycar series, and Grosser looking to be the 3rd different winner here in this particular campaign.
Indeed, and this would be huge for Robert Grosser. Like you said, he's been in this program for just about longer than anybody else, so it would be really big for Grosser to get a win here today, put himself potentially into championship contention. He hasn't won one all season, and he's definitely on the prowl to win one right now, because the two guys that have won races, one of them's out of the race. The other one he's not even on the lead lap right now. Check that. He's the one that's running second place we're running on board with right now. So there you can see, it's been such an extreme fight, and I'll tell you what, the championship battle is going to get blown wide open from this as well. I mean, you had Joshua Chin, who was 23 points up from LaVille going into this race. He's crashed out. LaVille is still on the lead lap and running in second place. If he can finish there, this would be absolutely huge for that championship fight, and detrimental for Joshua Chin.
Yeah, I think overall, you look at all the different aspects of the way this could affect the points championship with the entire storyline. It could very well put Lucas Laville into the championship heading to the next round of the series. It's also going to bring Robert Grosser, especially with a race win, would bring Robert Grosser back into the opportunity to put himself in the top 3. Plus, you think about the team championship as well. Team Chimera coming in with the team standings with a pretty decent lead over Vortex Sim Racing. It's going to allow Vortex to close back up there as well. So all in all, a really solid day shaping up for Vortex Sim Racing. But listen, I've done 28 iRacing events so far. We don't worry about it as much in the real world, but I don't know what it is, Nolan, but it definitely is the commentator's curse here in iRacing. I don't want to talk too much about Robert Grosser or Lucas Laville because I'd hate for you and I to be the guy that takes it away from him. I don't know how it works, but the commentator's curse is real.
Ethan Hagen is going into the pits to make an undercut attempt on Jamie Wilson. 5th place as well, Matt Molnar already came down 1 lap prior. So Hagen is having himself a good go at things right now. So he's going to bring himself down to the lane and get himself sorted. So Matt Molnar, of course, going into the pits first. He was the first driver to lead it down, just like he did in the first window. And now Ethan Hagen is going to be into the pits as well to try to go for that undercut attempt on Jamie Wilson. We'll have to see if this one will work once he gets on a fresh rubber.
I think this is too early for Ethan Hagen. He's going to have to stop again, unless he's going to come out here and put the hammer down. Because we've talked about 28 laps being the run. That would put him at lap 80. He's going to, unless he's moving to a 3-stop strategy, this is too early for Ethan Hagen to come into pit lane. He's definitely going to have to stop one more time for a splash and go at the end. But as you said, Ethan Hagen out of the box here right now, 12.1 seconds. So he most definitely took the time to pack it full of fuel. But this is an interesting call for Hagen in the number 20, of course, able to get away from the battle with Jamie Wilson. I don't know whether or not this is going to pay off, but I expect to see him, Nolan, at least to stop maybe is 4 or 5 to go to get some more fuel.
I'd like to kind of reminisce back to that 2015 race, because if you remember, Mark Usher did get a 3-stop strategy going and pushed it all out all the way to the end. You got to wonder if maybe Ethan Hagen is trying to go for that same strategy. Now he might push all out through to the end, not take a full service, but maybe come down and put a bit of extra fuel in it. If that's the case, though, and he's trying to replicate the Usher strategy, he is going to have to push with everything he has right now to get himself through to the end. The problem is he was already pushing hard as it was, and was almost losing the back end of his car, and still was not able to get around Jamie Wilson. So I don't know. It's a very curious pit call. We'll have to see how this will work out for him. 12.1 second stops, like you said, packed it full of fuel right to the brim, as much as you can get in these cars. It's an interesting call for sure, and one that might come back to bite him later on in this run.
Yeah, the only way this is going to work for him is if he can put some tremendous laps down, stay away from lap traffic, because Robert Grosser is turning his fastest laps of the race right now, 114.113. As another driver coming into pit lane, Luka Lejcevic is into pit lane in the number 73. Lejcevic coming in from P7. Very narrow pit lane here at Zolder. As you can see, the drivers having to negotiate their way through before getting down to their spots. We'll stay on board here with Lejcevic again for his pit stop. I'm surprised we're seeing guys come in right now. It's still 30 laps here from the end of this race. So these guys are all, I believe, unless they're going to go on a massive fuel save to the end, these guys are all banking on one more stop. And maybe you look at where you are in terms of being down a lap, whatever it may be. You're not going to be able to go for a race win. How much gap do you have for the driver in front of you? Maybe that one extra pit stop's not the worst call. 11.7 seconds to stop for Lejcevic. But I'm really interested to see what kind of lap times Ethan Hagen can lay down here, because Grosser has almost track record times. He's less than a tenth of a second off the race record lap that we saw laid down by Joshua Chin early.
So Joshua Chin is still holding that fastest lap of the race, and right now the current lap record. And I would honestly like to see Joshua Chin continue to hold that right through the checkered flag. It would definitely be huge for him if he could at least get himself a track record to get himself locked into the history books here in the Classic Indycar series, as Robert Grosser, though, is definitely looking to hunt that time down for sure. I mean, it shows that even when you're in the lead, you don't stop pushing it. I don't think Robert Grosser has stopped pushing throughout this entire race. He's been doing a very good job. He's been absolutely dominant all day long, and he's only been extending his lead out from these drivers. I mean, we were seeing it was about 15 seconds a while ago. Now it's up to 17 seconds. Not by much, but he is still clawing his way away from this field. So Robert Grosser is definitely in prime position right now to come away with his first win of the season, and a much-needed one, too.
Christian Richter coming into pit lane right now from the 9th position, dropping down into 10th here as drivers starting to work their way by. Lap 55, working lap number 56 for Robert Grosser. We may see him soon. If he's still on a two-stop strategy, lap 56 to be the stop for Grosser, so we may see him duck into pit lane momentarily. At that point, he'd be able to cruise to the end and still go on that fuel save. There's the 64 now of Richter. 32 of Andrew Wood for Team Camara, rolling back out on track after he cycled out, coming into 13th. Still a lot more adjustments to go as everybody gets into pit lane. Indeed, coming into pit lane now, Robert Grosser, your leader, right on time as expected. 28 laps for each of his stints. He comes in here on lap number 56. It'll be a full stop for him, expected to go somewhere north of 12 seconds for Grosser in the Vortex sim racing machine. The number 3, he has been perfect all day, qualifies on pole, gets that pit stall rather, at the very tail of pit lane. Look for a 12-1 or a 12-2. Try to get this thing full of fuel. He will be able to go on fuel save. He's got that much of a gap right now. 12.1 seconds to stop. Robert Grosser down and away.
Jamie Wilson is extending his run out by a couple more laps here yet. I mean, you saw Ethan Aiken came down early, and he was definitely trying to go for an over-under. We think it might have been a bit too soon. Jamie Wilson is still running out on the track, and I think Wilson will lose third place here at this point because the fresh rubber that Aiken's going to have in his car will have gained him so much time. The problem for Wilson, though, is how will he be able to shape this up? How is he going to be able to get himself sorted here? Because you got to remember, if he needs to come in, that's another free spot for Jamie Wilson if Ethan Aiken came down too early.
Yeah, Aiken's going to have to stop again. There's no doubt about it. Here comes Lucas LaVille as well. He'll be into pit lane from P2. So LaVille into pits. He was on a 28-lap stint, exactly what we had expected. LaVille hoping to try to get by here. He's going to get caught up. I don't think Wilson's going to be close enough to do anything anyways, but LaVille getting caught up behind one of the slower cars as they pit the same. He had to come in, though, because he had 28 laps on his stint. Right now, Jamie Wilson will inherit the lead, but this is his 28th lap on his stint as well, so we expect to see Jamie Wilson to come in here next to the number 87 machine. Wilson, again, taking the lead. Now, if he stays here, he's obviously on a two-stop strategy. Ethan Aiken's going to have to turn up the wick in a big way. Otherwise, I think the top 3 are pretty much locked and loaded. They'll cruise to the end. It would be Grosser, LaVille, and Wilson, barring any kind of mistake. Otherwise, looking for Wilson now to be the next driver to pit lane.
Wilson was a 1:14.1 the last time by. Ethan Aiken, a 1:15.5. So Aiken has had himself some more difficulties. Looks like a couple more tank slappers here or there, and it's not what you want to see at all if you're Ethan Aiken, just losing more and more time after an undercut, no less. It's certainly the exact wrong thing like you wanted to have happen to him. But you got to remember, Ethan Aiken, he stopped early on his first stint as well. So it's an interesting call from Aiken to, give himself up a couple of laps there, and it seems to only have cost him here in the longer run. Now Jamie Wilson is down to the pit lane, and now we'll see, can Ethan Aiken get him back? Because right now Aiken is just coming up to the turn 5 chicane. He's just going through there now. I don't think Ethan Aiken is going to be able to pass him here.
Yeah, he was behind him before when he came into pit lane, and he's put down a couple laps in the mid to high 115s. He's not even anywhere near where he needs to be pace-wise if he's on a 3-stop strategy. He needed to be down into the low 114s to take advantage of the other drivers potentially, having to do some fuel saving, some clutch and coast. So at this point, Wilson will come into pit lane. Again, look for it to be north of 12 seconds. He'll need that in the Team Chimera. Number 87 hits his marks coming in. Pit stop almost done here right now. Make that 11.9 seconds for Wilson. Not quite the 12.1 or 12.2 we saw at Grosser and LaVille, but he's down and away, coming back out onto the racetrack, and will indeed, I believe, be able to hold on to his spot, P3. In fact, Ethan Aiken's going to be quite a ways back. Oh, almost spins it, though, coming out through turn number 2.
Bit of a close moment there for Jamie Wilson. Got to watch those cold tires. Of course, they will bite you in a big way if you abuse them too early. And it's interesting for Ethan Aiken because he's still hitting times in the low 115s here. He's not nearly the pace he was at earlier as we take a look at the replay of what is going to be the near spin for Jamie Wilson. And I got to wonder for Ethan Aiken if he's already working on fuel saving. And yeah, there
was
you have
contact.
it. There was contact with his teammate, no less.
Was that potentially with Now McBride?
might have been with Andrew Wood. I'm not
Wow.
quite sure. Going to look back at it here for myself, but that was definitely contact there. Now, it was Andrew Wood that just came right across him. That's Andrew Wood not paying attention at all in the number 32 machine because he came right across him. Wilson is not going to be very happy. Now, there might be a team discussion after the race because of that, because right, you can see Wood is not paying attention there at the car that's clearly on his right side.
Yeah, but you know what? He's already rolled into the corner. You know, if you're the 87 to Jamie Wilson and you're P3 and you know you can't catch the leaders, why wouldn't you give the room? You needed a seed there. He was going down to the inside. You've got a guy rolling from the outside. I'm not sure which spotters they have, but that's a spotter issue right there. They should have been talking to each other. Someone should have let someone go by. Andrew Wood, of course, on warm tires, trying to get himself in the right spot. I don't like that call at all for Jamie Wilson. He probably could have checked up there. A spotter from one of those two cars will be part of a discussion for sure, because there's no way that contact needed to happen.
Absolutely not. And even if it was not teammates involved, it likely would have been, quite the incident in the first place, and still would have been, kind of on the spotters. But, when you have two teammates that are doing this, usually in these kinds of races, teammates are communicating with each other in, their own little chat channels.
Indeed,
so
yeah.
You got to wonder, what in the world was going on there? Clearly not proper communication, but whatever the case, the good news is that the incident is, not really affected a lot of drivers. No damage was on either one, so they're going to be able to keep this one clean and green, but a scary moment for sure.
Yeah, and Dee, I'm going to have a quick look here at the car of Jamie Wilson, whether or not there's any kind of damage here. This is actually the battle a little further back. I believe this is the 17 or the 167 we on board with here right now. That's Johnny Garrett in the 68, Josh Vanderven in the 167. And again, drivers for 11th and 12th. And again, the thing about this is it doesn't matter where you are on track. We've always seen some really good racing here in this classic IndyCar series. Drivers do what they can to scrap their way home. A lot of mistakes in this particular race. Kind of surprised by how many issues we saw in this particular event. Let's have a look here at Andrew Wood. Remember the contact between he and his teammate. Again, he'll come and work his way back through turn number 2 again. There appears to be no damage for Andrew Wood, still currently running in the 11th spot. So Andrew Wood made his pit stop. He's back out onto the racetrack as well. Potential issue for Andrew Wood, only a 1.6 second stop. Was that, I don't know what that was. Was it just a splash to refill to go to the end? What do you think that was, Nolan?
Not quite sure. I mean, you don't see that too often, though, for sure. I mean, it definitely was not for a quick repair, because these drivers do not have those in the season. He didn't even get on the jacks, so that was definitely a splash and go to get to the end. That is
He'll
interesting.
go to the end.
Oh,
Yeah, he'll go to the end now, right?
An unsafe pit exit potentially for Wood, so potential black flags, what we're hearing from our producer here, so potentially serving a black flag.
Interesting for sure. Some developments here for Team Chimera. A couple of issues. Of course, the driver running in third, Jamie Wilson, in the 87, contact with his teammate Andrew Wood in the 32, as we had said. So, weird to see that 1.6 second pit stop. I'll try to get a better update on that. But again, watching this driver work his way through. Let's go back right now, though, to our leader, Robert Grosser, who now has a 17.8 second lead. Tremendous run, Nolan, so far for Grosser.
At this point, it's really a fuel race, and it's not so much going to be an on-track race, because there's nobody on track that's really within, 5 seconds of each other at the very least. So, a lot of drivers, they're completely separated now, so this is very much a fuel strategy race, and it is going to be very interesting to see how this race will shape up as things go on. We only have, 25 minutes remaining here, and it really has been a case of on-track battles and attrition throughout the course of this race up until that pit window. But now, with these, few developments, it's a very interesting question. And we talked about how pit strategy, we haven't really talked about a whole lot, we haven't had time to, but, pit strategy, we were
driver around, right in front of the leader. That's the 41 of McBride going around right in front of Robert Grosser. So one of the Team Chimera cars, now McBride in the 41. We're going to watch this again on board with Niall. Wow. Coming through, I believe, turn number 7 right now. It loops it through the second part of the chicane right in front of Grosser. And Robert able to get off the throttle enough to kind of just lace his way through there. Wow, talk about an eye-opener, and here it is. This is Grosser. Here's your leader right now, dominating the action, working his way up in a slower car, looking to roll the corner here. Sees the driver spin in front of him, all on the binders. In fact, make sure that he doesn't see that car roll back in front of him. That was a wake-up call for Robert Grosser here. Nolan with 20 laps to go.
Good job on Robert Grosser. He realized that he did not have to push it a whole lot because he's got like so much time between him and the lead. He has 15 seconds right now between him and, you know, the second place driver. So he can afford to lose a few seconds, slow it down to make sure he gets through a wreck clean. So good job on Grosser to kind of read that and get down slow, almost bring it to a stop. And of course, like we said, he can afford to lose those few seconds. That's the beauty of having, you know, this 15-second advantage right now, because he lost about 2 seconds there, but he still has almost an insurmountable gap right now up on Lucas Laville, barring any issues for Grosser. But, you know, remember how I was saying how we were hoping that commentator's curse wouldn't happen? Oh, got a little close there now, didn't it?
It did. Man, it caught me off guard in a big way because you see the livery of those two teams that we talk about on a regular basis, Team Chimera and Vortex Sim Racing, the two leading teams here in the Classic Indycar Series here on Race Spot. And again, Lucas Laville on board with him running in that second spot. Great opportunity for Vortex to cut into that point lead. The team standings currently being held by Team Chimera. Of course, those squads have split the race wins. Joshua Chin with a couple of victories on the ovals. Lucas Laville here winning at both Sebring and Brands Hatch to get both road course victories. And they run 1-2 right now. Robert Grosser P1, Lucas Laville in second. Team Chimera's Jamie Wilson in third spot. So trying to make sure that at least one Team Chimera driver up on top of or on the podium at least. Now watching the number 68 of Johnny Garrett, a little bit of ahead of the 161 of Josh Vanderven. That's 9th and 10th. Only 5 drivers, Nolan, remain on the lead lap. I think that tells you one thing about Zolder. A tough racetrack. You have to have the setup, and you have to nail your line around this racetrack. So many drivers have struggled and had mistakes, and that has allowed Grosser to be able to kind of work his way through and get us this big victory. Still ways to go, though.
And to give you some just like a key example as to how spaced out these cars are, this battle right now, which is about 2.4 seconds now, this is the closest fight we have on track right now. So that just shows you how spread out everybody is around this place. And, you know, like we were saying earlier before this race even began, you know, pit strategy is going to be very, very crucial here in this race. It was crucial in deciding the last race we had here 5 years ago. It is being crucial in deciding this one too. And I mean, we've seen the pit strategy already play out. It looks like all pit strategies are complete. It's at this point where we're at the stage we gotta start looking as to how is this going to affect things, because the strategy calls have been made and there's no way you can reverse that now. Now these drivers have got to try to capitalize on what they've got left to make sure that maybe they can scrape up 1 or 2 more spots before this race ends. Josh Vanderven looking to close into Johnny Garrett, it would seem here.
Well, yeah, we're watching this battle for 9th, and we'll come back. I want to talk more about the battle between Wilson and Egan. We'll get there in a bit, but on board here right now with Josh Vanderven as he's trying to put that pressure to try to close back up. Based on speeds of these two drivers right now, Johnny Garrett's going to be able to pull away. Last time by, quicker by 0.8 of a second. So 9th and 10th have seemingly settled into where they are. Interesting for me right now as well, as we still have about 18 laps to go. Ethan Egan and Matt Molar are 13 and 14 laps respectively into their stints. Both of these drivers are going to have to do splash and goes. Now, granted, they have a pretty big lead. Molnar is 20 seconds ahead of Carson Broadway, and Egan about 38 seconds ahead of Molnar. So they're not going to lose any time on the racetrack, but I find it to be interesting that they would have made those stops. Maybe they wanted to roll the dice and get into clean air and potentially have some issues with the other drivers or not. Here's Egan right here in the number 20. He's going to have to stop still. I'm going to say probably about 15 laps from now, he's going to have to stop. I don't see that he's going to be able to go. Maybe he's able to do it, go to the end, go on full fuel save. It could be tough for him to get to the end.
The question is going to be, we know he's going to have to stop again, but does he know that? I mean, usually you'd expect that answer to be yes, because they're in the car, but there have been incidents in the past in this very series. I remember actually at Silverstone back in 2018, a driver ran out of fuel coming into the pits because he spaced it out one lap too long. It would not be the first time we've seen drivers run out of fuel here. So it's one of those interesting factors. You gotta wonder if they know what needs to be done. And right now, Ethan Hagen is still on the prowl, and it looks like he might be trying to back off as well. Andrew Wood back down into the lane for him. This is definitely longer than 1.2 stop. This one 4 seconds this time. That was a splash and go for sure. The 1.6 second stop he had earlier was indeed for an unsafe pit release, and that was what cost him there. And now it's another splash and go for Andrew Wood. So the calls just keep on coming, it would seem.
Yeah, tough one for Andrew Wood. Again, he was running decently up there in the top 10, currently back into the 12th spot with stops that he has had to take. So we'll watch these drivers kind of finish things up here again. Right around 16 laps remaining as we expect. And again, that would put Egan and Molar at 31 lap stints. I just don't think they're going to be able to roll it in, especially with Egan running lap times in the high 114. He's definitely not on full fuel save mode. This is, of course, the number 87 of Jamie Wilson. He has been very, very consistent throughout the season as well. We've seen him running up front both on the road courses and the ovals, currently in the 4th place in points. And like everybody, Nolan, even though it's not going to be a race win here potentially for Jamie Wilson, barring any issues with Robert Grosser, everybody here in the top 3 are all going to get an opportunity to close up. In fact, everybody is going to get an opportunity to close up the points on Joshua Chin. Depending on how this championship rolls out, this will be a race that Chin will probably look back on and say, I either was able to dodge a bullet or I really took one hard for that issue at Zolder.
Absolutely, and this is becoming a pattern now for Joshua Chin of bad luck at the road courses. Remember, he had that problem at Sebring. He had the problem at Brands Hatch that cost him a win there. He now has had an even bigger mistake that has cost him a win here as well. So he's made 3 mistakes now at the 3 different road courses, every one of them costing him a race win. That's why this battle has been so close. And there is one more road course yet before we go back to where Joshua Chin will no doubt prevail, and that is going to be the Detroit Belle Isle, which is, of course, a street circuit. And the street circuits is where we really have to look out for as well, because it's just a whole different ball game racing on the streets, even for a place like Detroit, which is only semi-temporary, because you do have a couple purpose-built sections in that place, I believe. But it really is interesting to see, the different road courses, and you got to wonder, can Joshua make anything at the street circuit? Because it's even more bumpy there. It's a much more challenging track than Zolder is. I think that right now Joshua Chin is in a very dangerous place for his championship hopes.
Well, he's going to have to go to Detroit and really run smart. You talked about the fact it's a temporary circuit, and there are many areas of that racetrack where you're running through the concrete walls, and you simply can't make a mistake. There's no going offline. You won't hear us very much say dropping a couple of wheels in the grass, because you don't drop wheels. You contact the concrete wall. He's going to have to come back here and have a really strong run. And to be honest, all he needs is a consistent run. Even a top 5 for Joshua Chin at Belle Isle will be strong for him, knowing that we're going to be coming back after that to New Hampshire, to Kentucky, where he's able to have the success he's had on the oval so far. That'll be his kind of mid-season recovery, but he's going to have a really strong run. As I said, just top 5 will be enough. But that Robert Grosser and Lucas LaVille and these 2 Vortex drivers, along with Jamie Wilson, will be looking to try to salvage back a bunch more points on the next road course as well.
You're absolutely correct. He needs to have a consistent run going into the later portions of the season. The problem... Oh, hello, Lucas LaVille trying to find his way around
that's Tristan Hauser, actually. Hauser was getting out of the way of Jamie Wilson.
And it seems Tristan Hauser had his own couple difficulties himself as well throughout the course of this event. And you can see he's running down there in 15th. And right now he's doing a good job running where he's at and trying to let the field through and everything like that. So good on Hauser to be aware of everything that's going on around him on the circuit. And he's going to actually bring it down to the pits this time through. But, going back to what you were saying, Chin absolutely needs a very consistent run to keep himself alive. The thing is, front runners like Joshua Chin, they don't like to run just in the top 5. They like to go for wins. To them, I've seen this time and time again, both IRL and in the sim. It's either a win or it's nothing for them. And Joshua Chin is definitely one of those drivers that likes to push it all out right through to the end. We've seen this time and time again. Even in the race at Phoenix earlier this year, we've seen he likes to go all out right through to the end. And it's just something that we have to keep an eye on, because it can help him as well, because it means he's a very aggressive racer, which can help you on course. It can also cost you, though, if you're pushing when you don't need to be pushing.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because a lot of the drivers I'll talk to when I'm working with IndyCar Radio, you'll talk about the championship. You'll ask, hey, did you think about maybe backing off, or was there a point where you're running 5th, where you're thinking about the championship? And most will tell you straight up, even on the radio, they'll be very blunt with, no, I was not thinking about the championship. I was trying to go for whatever position I possibly could. Maybe in the back of their mind, they're like, yeah, a 5th isn't bad. But every driver you talk to, if you ask them for the bottom line comment, thought process, is that if you win races, the championship will take care of itself. And I think that's probably the case for Joshua Chin. He's going to go to Detroit. Chin's a champion. He's a race winner. Is he going to go in and think about trying to finish 5th because it'll be smart before they go to the 2 ovals back to back? No. He knows he has good speed at the road courses. He's made a couple minor mistakes and got caught up in a couple of incidents that were not his own doing as well. He's going to go there. He's going to try to win the race. And if he wins the race, the championship will take care of itself. And I guarantee you that'll be more the approach than conservative for Joshua Chin.
But then you look at other guys in the sim racing community like Gregor Hutu and Martin Kroenke, who have won themselves, several iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series titles apiece, which was the pinnacle of, esports at the time. So, and they won that by pushing as hard as they could throughout every single race. I mean, Hutu himself had a 5-year dominant streak, as we see Jamie Wilson ducking his way through a bunch of lap traffic and having some difficulties in doing so. So a few hairy moments still coming out in this series, but, you have to. This is one of those series where you just need to push it as hard as you can, and the championship will take care of itself. So a very good point on there. We're now in these final few minutes, and you gotta wonder now for a couple of these guys, like of course Ethan Agan, if they know that they have to come in for that splash of fuel, when are they going to do it? Or is Agan going to stay out, try to maybe stretch this out as long as he possibly can, in the hopes that maybe by some miracle he can make it to the end of the race? He's 20 laps on his stint now. And we've still got I had to guess, probably about 8 to 10 laps to go.
Yeah, I think looking at the lap times that Agan's putting down at this point, laying down, some of his best laps down to 1:14.7 last time by, he has a pretty good lead over Matt Molnar. It's about 38 seconds now. I'm not even sure. I don't actually have the pit delta written down, how much time you actually lose making the run to the pits. Molnar very, very likely has to pit as well. That's the one thing. If Agan's got a strategist working with him. In fact, Molnar's up even another lap, so Molnar will definitely have to come into the pits. They're both turning 1:14.7, so if Agan's got to pit, Molnar has to pit. Molnar's got 30 seconds as well on Carson Broadway, so Molnar more and maybe an issue potentially losing that spot, to the P5 spot to Broadway. I think Agan's going to be pretty clean, but he's definitely going to have to make a stop before the end of this one, I believe.
Well, once again, I mean, the strategy calls have been made, and you've seen guys like Andrew Wood come down to make corrections on those with the splash and goes. But, it's one of those things where the strategy calls have been made, and now the drivers just have to deal with what they have left. We're now seeing the results of the strategy calls that have been made, and this is, again, one of those races where pit strategy has been a deciding factor in this race, because nobody's close on track right now. There are no battles for position on the course right now. Everybody's just running processionally right now, and they're trying to figure out how can we make it through to the end without running out of fuel. I think guys like Robert Groscher are going to be good on fuel, and they're not going to have to stop again. Guys like Ethan Agan, though, and definitely Matt Molnar, it's still completely up in the air for them as to where they're going to end up.
Noel, we've been focusing a lot on how the departure of Joshua Chin is going to kind of open things up for the guys behind him, those who are doing so well up front here right now. We talked about the fact that Robert Grosser, P5, is going to get much closer to the lead if he's able to get this victory. We can't not talk about Ethan Agan as well. He came into this race sitting second in the Rookie of the Year points, about 11 markers behind Clark Archer. Archer's actually not with us here today, so Ethan Agan's going to take that position as well. He's 16th in points. He's running P4 right now. He could potentially work his way into the top 10, take over the Rookie of the Lead points as well. So Egan's going to be smart here. We'll see whether or not he has to do a stop and go, whether he's able to potentially get all the way to the end. I don't see it. I think probably about 6 more laps before we see Ethan Egan and Matt Molnar into the pits. I'll tell you, what a good run so far here for Lucas LaVille, who we're watching in that number 29. A couple of different issues for Lucas. He's got 2 wins already. This would be a second-place finish. He would extend his lead in the road race, the road course championship standings, where he's now significantly ahead by 32 points ahead of Joshua Chan. So really a strong day here for Lucas LaVille. Could be a second-place finish and could indeed move him into the point lead by the end of the day.
Pit stops are still being made at the last second. Niall McBride in the number 41 car just came out in the 15th position, came down briefly, and it looks like potentially got a front wing change. In fact, he did. So McBride has had a moment somewhere in the number 41 car, had some front wing damage, came in, got it fixed, and while it was at it, topped up on fuel as well. So McBride making one final call for today as we are now under 10 minutes to go. There you can see the difference between Robert Groscher and Lucas LaVille. It is just absolutely massive, and you got quite a few lap cars between LaVille and Groscher on top of it all. So there's just no way that Groscher's going to lose this if he keeps that car steady. He doesn't even need to push right now.
Yeah, Grosser going for his 6th series win, 3-time champion. And as you said, really can probably put it on cruise control right now, manage his pace. His best lap of 114.113. Less than a tenth off of the new race track record laid down by Joshua Chin earlier today, a 114.044. It's a 14-second advantage for Grosser over his teammate LaVille. They're running very similar lap times. LaVille maybe about a tenth of a second quicker, 14.549 between first and second. Now the Vortex Sim Racing crew will be pretty pumped at the end of this one. As you said, 8.5 minutes remaining, laps winding down. We will expect to see Ethan Egan and Matt Molnar into a quick pit stop and go before it's all said and done. But again, watching Lucas LaVille here, been a tremendous run for him on the road courses so far. Second place would be a tremendous run, especially after the 2 incidents that he had. I would bet, Nolan, if you talked to Lucas before the race and said, if you had 2 spins in turn number 1, where do you think you'd finish this race? I don't think he'd tell you on the podium.
I honestly wasn't expecting him to be, that far up either. I mean, we saw LaVille drop back as far as 7th place, and we thought that was where he was going to stay for the majority of this race because he just kept on making those mistakes. I mean, it was probably about 3 or 4 total errors that he made, which cost him dearly. And now look at him. He's running back up in 2nd place and set to stay there throughout this race to help Vortex Sim Racing get a 1-2 finish here, which is absolutely phenomenal for that team. I mean, especially since one of their guys, one of their other drivers, Robert Groscher, is going to be getting his first season win here, barring any issues for him throughout this race. And I mean, Groscher has been having a very good run all race. He's been very, very steady. He's been very consistent, has not had to push a whole lot. He really hasn't had to fight a whole lot either outside of probably about the first 15 minutes of this race. It really has just been kind of cruising along for him. Closest battle on track right now is between Andrew Adair Saunders in 10th place and Luka Lechevic. And you can see Lechevic is closing the gap by a significant margin, 1.4 seconds on lap 72, 7/10 on lap 73, another 6 on lap 74. The gap, 2.6 seconds and closing.
Yeah, I was just watching that, Nolan, trying to kind of pick up some of the fast drivers, potentially moving to the top 10. Luka Lechevic really starting to turn things up here. Again, his lap time significant. Adair Saunders down to a 1:17.5 or up to a 1:17.5 that last time by. That gap is just shrinking. Full second over the last time they came by the stripe, just 2.1 seconds. Lechevic back now. This is late in this race. We know we only have about 7 laps to go, and he is putting a ton of pressure on trying to get up on Saunders. You can be guaranteed they're telling on Adair Saunders that he has got to get rolling because they have Luka Lechevic closing. It's a good battle here for the top 10.
Matt Molnar is down to the lanes, so there you have it. The call for a splash and go is finally made on the number 5 with just 6 minutes left to go. So Molnar going to take it in. A very brief stop, expecting not even to take tires. It's only a 5.8 second stop, and he's off and away. Ethan Egan through turn 10, he is stretching this one out and trying to see if he can manage to extend this one out through to the end of the race. And right now, Andrew Adair-Saunders still running out there, but Electrovic is definitely closing. It was a 1:16 flat for Electrovic last time at the line, a 1:17.2 for Andrew Adair-Saunders, 1.2 seconds gained on the last time by. Electrovic is on the hunt.
Yeah, here's the fight here. You can see that he'll work his way up. Carson Broadway trying to get by, or just got in right behind Matt Molnar. He was just able to get out in front of Broadway. That was a close one there as well. So Broadway trying to find his way by for P5. This is Ledjevic here in the 78. So here's Matt Molnar. Let's have a look at this on the replay. Matt's going to come out here, and this is how close this battle is. It was a 5.8 second stop, but remember, we're talking, of course, about the Delta. He comes out in here, and look at right behind him is Carson Broadway. And he was celebrated a birthday the last time we had the event at Brands Hatch. Look at the pressure he's putting on. That's for 5th. That's a top 5 finish. Carson Broadway back up on it, trying to close up here, but again, here's the, now I love this replay. Let's go on board with Carson. He sees him come out, and Karsten says, all right, it's time to go to work. Little bit inside coming through turn number 3. Probably could have rolled the car to the outside a little bit. I don't know if he got the run he needed out of that corner. In fact, yeah, I missed the apex coming through turn number 4, Nolan. That's all it takes to allow Matt Molnar the opportunity to pull away.
And Broadway is continuing to extend his lead out there, so we're still waiting to see what is going to happen with Ethan Hagen, if he's going to make that final run down to the lane. In fact, he is. Ethan Hagen is down in the pits right now, pulling his way into the stall with less than 5 minutes to go. So there you have it. Hagen was not able to make it as we suspected, and he is going to be off and away. Luka Ledjevic now right on the back of Andrew Adair-Saunders. The battle for 10th place is on in force. So this is one of the closer battles on the course right now. And right now, Ledjevic, he's trying to make himself one final spot in the final laps of the race.
Pretty much our final battle on the racetrack, unless Carson Broadway can turn things up to go after Matt Molnar. Ledjevic in the 73, pushing hard. And this is the opportunity. Oh,
he's hit him!
Contact! It was contact! Drivers together, coming in through the chicane. Contact for the drivers in 9th and 10th, or 10th and 11th position.
So ending that off with some fireworks, it would seem, and Ledjevic well overshot the corner. Actually hit him a second time, too. That broke the suspension, I think, on Andrew Adair-Saunders' car, as that forced him to make another pit stop. So it's all gone wrong there. There's the replay, and another hard shunt there. That is not good at all for Andrew Adair-Saunders, and that is not the way we wanted to see that battle end in the slightest.
Yeah, you know what? Adair-Saunders got a really good run out of turn number 8 through turn number 9. Had the gap coming in there, and Luka Ledjevic had closed up. You know that. I think that's one of the deals, Nolan, where you've worked so hard to get that close. There's an opportunity to make a pass, and you push that hard and go that deep into the braking zone. That's all on Ledjevic, no doubt about that, because he pushed so hard to get into the corner. Adair-Saunders going to jump back into pit lane, try to make repairs if possible. Man, hate to see that after Ledjevic was able to close up as he did.
I think that's one of those things where race control is going to have a look at that post-race, because that was definitely, there is no other better way to say that. That was definitely all on Ledjevic after well overshooting that braking point. He probably wasn't even going to make that corner. I mean, you saw how fast he was going in there. I mean, even after you hit him and got slowed down that way, he still overshot the corner and hit him a second time. So he was never going to make that corner with how late he was on the brakes. So that was honestly just another one of those moves that probably did not need to be made when it was made. And just like that, another battle comes to a close. A minute and a half left to go, and Robert Groscher right now through turn number 8 and coming on to the turn 9 flicks now, looking to be one more lap to go at the line.
One winner of that incident between Ledjevic and Adair-Saunders, that was Andrew Wood. He ends up moving up into the 10th position. Those drivers in front of him had the issues, so he goes into the top 10. That'll be good points in the team standings for Team Chimera. But again, Matt Molnar continuing to hold the spot. You can see how far back Carson Broadway is now. Molnar, who was able to get that spot done, able to get through. Ethan Hagan still with the 4th spot. Broadway about 2.3 seconds back. But now let's turn the focus where it should be right now. What a race day it has been for the veteran driver Robert Grosser. As I said, his 68th start here in the Classic Indycar Series. No one looking to grab race win number 6. It'll be his first here at this track in Zolder.
And it'll be the first one for his 2020 campaign as well. Just 30 seconds left on the clock. And with 11 seconds between him and his teammate Lucas Laville, there is absolutely no way that he could possibly lose this unless he has some kind of dramatic final lap incident. But right now, that car is looking very steady indeed. He's just got the hairpin, and then he's got one more chicane to manage, and he is going to be fine and dandy. 10 seconds to go, rounding that down to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It is official. This is the final lap of the race. Through the final chicane, Groscher onto the pit straightaway. The third different winner of the season, Robert Groscher finally takes a victory in the 2020 campaign. Checkered flag, and it's going to be a 1-2 finish as Lucas Laville crosses the line in second place.
Jamie Wilson, 15.2 seconds back of the leader to take that third position. Final rung on the podium. Ethan Agan, I believe, will be able to come through P4. We'll wait for the official crossing of the line for Ethan Agan. He will take over the lead in the Rookie of the Year standings as well, and will likely jump closer to the top 10 in the overall championship standings. This is going to change everything, Nolan. I think that's the big takeaway, other than the fact that we have our third different winner of the season with Robert Grosser and his just fantastic performance. Just the one minor mistake where he drove over the apex and had to let Joshua Chin by. It's a perfect day for the Vortex Sim Racing driver number 3. But man, the big thing here, the hit and the championship points for Joshua Chin tightens everything up before we head to Belle Isle in Detroit, Michigan. Everybody closing up on Joshua Chin, but man, what a tremendous drive here for Robert Grosser.
Absolutely, tremendous drive for him. And now, final cars crossing the start-finish line. And, well, with another race in the books for the Classic Indycar Series, I guess it will be time now to take a look at your post-race results, as the checkered flag has waved for all drivers on course, and Robert Groscher going to come down the pit straightaway and likely going to do a little bit of a celebration here for us as he takes his first win of his 2020 campaign and the first win in some time as well. Robert Groscher becomes your third different winner of the season. And with that, it is going to be Lucas Laville down in second place. Rounding out the podium was, of course, Jamie Wilson. A really good run for a lot of drivers. Of course, you got Ethan Agan, Matt Molnar rounding out the top 5, both having to make last-minute pit stops for slash and goes. Carson Broadway in 6th, Josh Baird 7th, Johnny Garrett in 8th, Jos Vandeven 9th, Andrew Wood rounds out the top 10, Rob.
Yeah, really exciting racing so far, thus far in the season. It's been exciting to watch what these drivers have done. We've obviously seen some of the names that we expect will be battling for the championship. Let's look further back in the order as well. Luka Lejcevic ends up 11th. Stefan Rossman was 12th. Andrew Adair Saunders, the issue late in the race, drops him down into 13th. Franz Joseph Stum was 14th. Now McBride 15th. Tristan Hauser, part of the drivers that were 4 laps back, in 16th. Art McEwen 17th. Those drivers getting to the very tail end of the race. Christian Richter, one of the drivers that early, as was Andrew Aiken. Joshua Chin right there in 20th. Man, tough one for him as he ends up going out after just 24 laps. The championship leader, 2 times a winner, is going to watch his lead pull away. And we expect to see Lucas Laville actually jump in. Here's the tail of the final 24 drivers on the track here today. Randy Shoemake out early. He finishes 21st. Caleb Weekly 22nd. Logan Simmons and Jan Hoffman rounding out the 24 drivers.
What a good race today. I mean, it was a very chaotic first half of the race. It was a bit of an interesting second portion of the race as well. Then, of course, it all settled down after that second pit stop cycle. Still going to wait to see if we're going to have a couple drivers giving us a bit of a talk today. But, well, while we're at it, we may as well discuss what's going to be happening for that next race coming up here in June 14th. Of course, at the Detroit Belle Isle, a street circuit, a whole new monster of road course racing. I mean, we talk about having little runoff here. That track has no runoff, so mistakes are definitely going to be even more costly there. You got to wonder if guys like Joshua Chin will be able to keep it together and hopefully have another go at the championship run.
You know, Noel, one thing I really like about this series is the diversity of the different tracks that we go to the facilities. We're talking about the Super Speedway at Fontana. Then we ran the Sebring Modified course, a legendary track. Then you go to the more shorter oval, at Phoenix. Then we do the Brands Hatch, this kind of short track road course. Then we come to Zolder. Then we go to the street circuit at Detroit. It just challenges these drivers so well. And you look down at some of the tracks later on, just some tremendous racetracks as well. But you're right. The challenge that will be the next event here in the Classic IndyCar Series, running on the street circuit at Detroit Belle Isle. That is going to challenge these drivers like they have not been challenged yet this season. No runoff, as you said. Track's fairly bumpy with what we have here on the iRacing platform. I look forward to that one for sure. And we'll see which drivers are able to kind of show up and be strong there. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Lucas Laville and Robert Grosser up front again.
Oh, absolutely. Certainly would not be surprised at all. And now we are finally going to get a couple of our guys in to give us a talk. And we're going to kick things off with your race winner for the day, Robert Grosser, coming home the first of two drivers in a Vortex Sim Racing 1-2. Robert, very, very strong run for you today. Absolutely dominating performance. Congratulations on your first win of the year 2020 campaign.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Thanks a lot, Nolan. Thank you very much. I am very, very happy. I mean, I was so disappointed 4 weeks ago at Brands Hatch, and oh well, that was great.
It was looking like it was going to be a pretty tight battle between you and Joshua Chin for the race win up front, and then you had your own little mistake, which was your one chink in the armor, and that allowed Chin to run immediately after. Chin lost it just less than a lap later and pinned it hard to the wall, and from there, the rest is history. You led every lap from that point on, about with a 15-second gap, and it never wavered even through the pit cycles. How was it for you? Because you were making it look very, very easy out there.
I can imagine. In reality, it was like super tough because it is so important here to stay focused all the time. And when I had this pressure at the beginning from Josh, that really helped me to keep that that focus to not make a mistake. Although I did a small mistake there. And then it was really tough to stay focused when Josh was gone. So I was always reminding me that Lucas and also Jamie are still a threat, and I should not just cruise around and maybe give the race away by doing so. It was really tough. I'm sweating. I'm really exhausted after this one. Also, hitting the fuel numbers. I was fuel saving the whole race from lap 1 till the finish line. So overall, very, very exhausting race.
Well, despite being exhausted, you absolutely crushed it out there today and came home with a very dominant win. Next race coming up is, of course, going to be Detroit Belle Isle, which is a whole new beast in of itself when it comes to road course racing, with the walls that are, of course, waiting to catch any driver out. What do you think your plans are going in for there? You expect to come back and maybe go for another win there?
Oh, that will be super tough. I mean, we all know how good, especially Joshua, is on tracks like Detroit. He dominated last year's race, winning by like 1 minute margin or something like this. So my goal is to play it safe, maybe benefit from some DNFs from some fellow competitors, and maybe get the podium, which I was giving away last year when I was just brushing the wall a little bit, which was enough to give a little bit of suspension damage. So yeah, I'm aiming for a podium, I would say.
Before I let you go here, anybody that would you'd like to shout out for today, who happens to be fast at the number 3 car, the mic is yours.
Yeah, first of all, big shout out to you guys for these awesome broadcasts you are providing every other week. And big thanks to my team, Lucas, Tristan, Jan, who helped this week preparing the car. And then, of course, to the league sponsors, Virtual Race Car Engineer, and all the other sponsors, Nucentric Solutions, Edifice, OpenWheels.com, and the Indycar Ministry.
And thank you, Robert, for taking the time to join us today. Going to, move things right on here to your teammate, as a matter of fact, Lucas Laville, who came home in a second place finish. So the second driver out of a 1-2 for Vortex Sim Racing. I believe Rob has caught up with Mr. Laville.
Lucas, congratulations on another strong run here on the road course. You end up second place here today, your third straight podium in road course competition. What I want to talk about first and foremost is, I don't think you would have expected to have such a strong finish. You had a couple of issues out there. Had I told you about that, you probably wouldn't have said you'd be on the podium. What happened in turn number 1? You had 2 incidents where you had some mid-corner oversteer and lost the car. Can you kind of walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, it was just way too aggressive on entry, fighting with Jamie. That's what you get for not practicing that enough, I guess. So that's on me. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. I had good pace. I know I could maybe keep up with Robert if I pushed enough, but that couldn't happen. So I just saved gas and tried to play the strategy game. Luckily for me, Jamie made a mistake and Josh crashed out. So
Yeah.
I was able to manage the podium. And I had a good start. That's the highlight of my race. That's the first 200 meters. That was perfect.
You did have a fantastic start, no doubt about that. Throughout the entire race, Noel and I were talking about the challenges of this particular racetrack. Is carrying the speed through turn number one of the toughest parts of this track? Because we saw a lot of drivers, a lot of great drivers, Josh, Jamie as well, yourself, making little mistakes coming in one. Is that one of the toughest parts of the track here at Zolder?
Oh yeah, for sure. You need to carry so much speed and use as much track as possible. Otherwise, you lose like three or 4 tenths in the blink of an eye, and it's really tough to make time on the rest of the track because of the start and stop nature of it. So yeah, you really need to be on your game here, and I wasn't. And I had no idea others had problem. I don't know what happened to Josh yet, so can't comment on that. But yeah, for sure, it's one of the most important corners because it sets up the biggest passing opportunity in the first chicane.
Yeah, it caught out a lot of people turn one, and that's indeed where Josh went around as well too. He had issues there and actually ended up finishing in the 20th spot, which is going to move you very likely into the point lead heading into Detroit. Let's talk about Belle Isle. It's a track I know that Robert had already talked about the fact that Josh has been very fast there. How does Detroit and its more maybe let's say unforgiving nature play into your strengths?
I love Detroit. It's my favorite track road-wise, apart from Le Mans. That's another story. Yeah, I just love Detroit. I was pretty good the couple times we ran there, and I had DC last year. Otherwise, I probably could have been able to finish P2 behind Josh. But Josh is the man to beat there. Is the master of fuel saving. So we're gonna have to see what we can do to counter his strategy. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to this race. I just love this place.
Well, I would have to say that both you and Robert had fuel saving down pretty nicely here today. We're able to get yourself to P1 and P2, a very strong outing for the drivers from Vortex Sim Racing. You're going to tighten things up in the team standings as well. Let's give you the opportunity, Lucas. I know that you guys have a fantastic team. Let me give you the chance to talk about the sponsors and the people that that support what you guys do.
Yeah, big shout out to all my teammates, especially Robert. The car was a rocket ship. A bit too slippery for me at times, but that's what I get for not practicing enough. Also, perfect result for us, as you said. That's great for the championship standings, team-wise. Also, big shout out to VRCE for sponsoring the series. And again, I can't wait to watch the broadcast and what you guys had to say about the race because it was pretty hot under the rift for me. I guess for Jamie as well and Robert. So I just can't wait to watch it, and thank you so much for all the hard work you put into the series.
Lucas, thank you. We appreciate your kind words. Congratulations on another podium run. 3 straight podiums, 2 wins, of course, part of that program as well. We can't say you're officially the point leader. We'll see what happens when all the calculations are done, but nonetheless, a really good run for you here in Belgium this weekend. Well done.
Thank you. Fingers crossed.
So, Nolan, we've got ourselves a championship on our hands right now, no doubt about that. I know you're standing by with another driver, I believe, Josh Baird, who finished P7.
Indeed, I am, and Josh Robert, of course, finishing 7th place, and one of 4 drivers that was just 1 lap down. Josh, despite being a lap down, you did manage to come away with a net gain of 2 spots and, of course, a top 10 finish. So, all around, would you say it was a successful day for you?
Yeah. Hey, this is my first time ever racing at Zolder. I believe Tuesday or Wednesday this week was my first time ever touching wheels on Zolder. So to finish in the top 10 was actually quite higher than I expected. I was looking to finish the race, and I accomplished that goal as well. So I'll take it as a win for today, and looking forward to next week already.
Zolder is, of course, one of the trickier tracks, but I guess one question that I have for you is, what are the trickier parts for you? Because we know that there were a lot of drivers that were, having their own little problems, particularly on the chicanes when it came to the curves. I mean, there was just so much struggles with drivers bouncing over them and then immediately losing the back end when some of the elevation changes where it was a bit steeper. It was certainly catching quite a few guys out.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I believe the chicanes were definitely the toughest part because I'm not a slow and fast out type of person, and I feel like you had to be those in the chicanes, because if you get off by an inch or two on either side, your day could be pretty well ended. So trying to avoid those curbs, trying to be patient through those curbs, and trying to be fast is a tough combination.
And then you, of course, have got yourself currently sitting about 7th place right now in the championship going into today's race. You're likely going to come away with about a spot or two on Liam Quinn to get yourself to 6th place in the championship standings. Detroit is up next. You think you can potentially challenge for maybe a top 5 spot in the point standings going into that race?
You know, I hope so. Last year, when we raced at Detroit, I had a very confident car, so I'm hoping to take that setup and apply it to this race. The problem with Detroit is, one bump can make the difference between you finishing and you not. I even ran the iRacing iRacing series this week, and one bump ended my day in that race as well. So trying to finish that race, and hopefully if it nets me P5, I'll stick around and be happy with that.
And, well, good job for you then to hopefully come away with another good finish for yourself at Detroit next week. And congratulations on the top 10 for your first ever race here at Zolder. Before we let you go, who helps you to be fast in your machine?
First of all, I'd like to thank God for the opportunity to be able to race, to be able to do my hobby and enjoy it. I'd like to thank the hosts for hosting the Classic Indycar series. They do so much off the air that a lot of people don't realize, and my wife as well for putting up with my obsession with iRacing, and thankful for my team for setup input and ability to make me finish top 10.
And good congratulations once again on your top 10 finish, Joshua. We're going to I'll let you go here. We do have one more driver that we are going to give a talk to today, and this one is going to be Mr. Andrew Adair Saunders. Rob, you are standing by right now with our 13th place finisher for the day.
Well, Andrew, I think 13th probably not what you deserve, because you were having a pretty good run. It was an up-and-down day for sure, but you had 10th. You were in the middle of a battle with Luka Lejcevic. Walk us through how it felt for you those last couple of laps, because obviously that was kind of the crescendo at the end of your race.
Yeah, what can I say? At the moment when it happened, I was livid.
Yes, I can imagine.
Well, but unfortunately I had some earlier self-spins which forced me to go over the incident limit threshold. So I decided not to wait, considering I also had damage, to take the extra 50-second penalty for the unsafe pit entry, lose that lap, take new tires, and just try to drive a few laps at the end. But I was very livid at the final portions of the race. There's nothing else to say, because that would be the first top 10 here, and it would have been my first top 10 in CIS since 2016 on a road course, and that didn't happen.
Well, listen, we obviously in a couple of weeks have a chance for you to grab that top 10 you're looking for when we get to Detroit. But let's still stay focused here on Zolder. A tough racetrack. You had talked earlier about the fact you had a couple of little missteps yourself. For you as a driver, what is the biggest challenge at Zolder? You were able to get yourself to the top 10 and of course, were unceremoniously dumped out of that. But what was the biggest challenge for you throughout the race?
The biggest challenge was try to stay consistent, not make any mistakes, and to hit my fuel numbers, because this was a timed race, and it turned out way before that we were a bit tight on making it on just two stops for the entire race. So I, from one, decided to go on a fuel-saving strategy. Under normal circumstances, I would have only been able to do something like 27 laps, which, if I had stayed on the lead lap, would not have been enough. That would have only multiplied to 81. So I had to get a few laps extra. But even though it wasn't planned, I managed to do a 30-lap stint. Planned was a maximum of 29.
Well, listen, I think that was something a lot of the drivers dealt with. You obviously were able to get yourself to where you needed to be. Good on you on that. And again, it's tough to say it, but you had that top 10 right there, a couple laps. You were able to get out of the turn number 8 cleanly and probably had that top 10. So take it at least with the fact that you were able to get the job done. It had not been for the incident with the driver getting in from behind of you, you probably would have got that top 10 you wanted. But we, of course, look forward to Detroit right now on Belle Isle. Is that a track that you think suits your driving style?
No. I gotta be honest here.
I like the honesty.
But no, I just have to, considering I haven't finished the first 2 appearances of Detroit in the CIS calendar, I probably have to reduce my own pace just to survive. No one will get black. I anticipate, as probably Robert and Lucas as well, that there will be no black flag penalties because with the walls, you will get most likely get a DNF before you will see that black flag. So I have to make sure that I do not touch the walls like all my other competitors.
Yeah, Detroit has its tendency to kind of penalize you on its own, right? We don't have to worry about the flags. The walls will do that for you for sure. Andrew, let me give you the opportunity. Who do you want to thank today for getting you onto the racetrack and for helping to put this car together?
Well, first, my team, we worked on a few strategies. Of course, setup work, also Logitech and Playseat for the equipment I use, and a very big shout out for DRE. It gives me audible fuel numbers, making sure that I was staying on target in terms of strategy. And of course, the other iconic sponsors like Dave.com, New, Cedric, Open Wheels for their support. Thank you.
Well done. 13th spot, almost a top 10. Good luck to you in a couple of weeks when we get to Detroit, but we'll see you then. Congrats on a good run today.
Thank you, and good night.
Nolan, we'll let Andrew get out of here. A really exciting race. We had some good battles. But for me, as a guy who's been in the sport for so long, the strategy side of motorsports on a particular facility like this, seeing the drivers have to hit their fuel numbers, hitting the lap times they want, and then with a track that seems so precarious in terms of just these minor places where drivers, when they're driving on the razor's edge, can make the mistake, I think that's what made today's race so intriguing.
Oh, absolutely. It was a very intriguing race for sure. You know, we had a lot of different things going on all throughout the course of this race. And at the end of it, pit strategy, it seems like did end up being the case to be a race decider, as well as, of course, a couple mistakes from a few very key drivers in this championship. But and what we do, don't forget that we do still have that next race coming up before long, June 14th. We are having, of course, round number 6, the Detroit Belle Isle Street Circuits, another whole new ballpark of racing. Round 7 in New Hampshire Speedway on June the 28th. You, of course, have August 9th after a 1-month break coming back at Kentucky. You do have a lot of racing still left to go at a lot of very different tracks others on the schedule. Indianapolis, Vegas, the Glen, Zandvoort, Montreal. You got a whole lot of different types of races. I can't wait for every single one of them.
Yeah, Nolan, I feel the same way. Looking forward to as many races as I can get in myself here with you guys here at Race Spot before we go actual real-life racing. I have to get back to my duties with the Indycar radio network and Road to Indy, and, of course, a lot of the karting events around North America here. Looking forward definitely to Belle Isle. I think it's a tremendous racetrack. And for me, to cap off, interesting to hear from Robert and Lucas, knowing the fact that they're going to have to battle Joshua Chin. They know how good he has been at Detroit. They know how good he is at fuel saving. I like the fact that they know who the primary challenger is going to be. And we talk to drivers about whether they like the track or not. Some do, some don't, but all kind of respect the fact that Detroit can bite you if you're not smart. I'm looking forward to that event again on June the 14th.
And with those words, it is going to be time for us to close yet another presentation here at the Classic IndyCar Series. I have been Nolan Rempel, bringing you today's coverage with Rob Hound beside me in the commentator's box with Mr. Will Vincent downstairs in the producer's chair. So, with this in mind, we will see you guys all at Detroit on June the 14th. We'll see you next time here on RaceBot TV on the iRacing Esports Network.